I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting held as conducted as a committee of the whole meeting for Monday, March the 14th, 2016. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Ms. Seymour? Present. Mr. Mandelbaum?
Here.
Mr. Morris? Excuse me, Ms. Morris.
Present.
Sorry. Mr. Fracassi?
Here.
Mr. Brightwell?
Here.
Mr. Cruz?
Present.
Mr. Frazier?
Here.
You have 7 members present.
Thank you. For the audience, would you please turn off your phones or put them at vibrate so that it doesn't disturb the rest of the meeting? I would appreciate that. The first item on our agenda this evening is the Southfield Police Department Emergency Vehicle Operation Training.
All right.
Chief?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good evening, Council and Mayor Cybers, city officials, members of the community. I'm here this evening to ask for authorization from Council to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to enter into an agreement with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department for emergency vehicle operations training for the police department. This is a type of training I'm very, very excited about. It's a 2-day training where all of the sworn officers in the Southfield Police Department will get an opportunity to sharpen their skills in operating motor vehicles under normal conditions as well as under high-stress pursuit type conditions as well. It's a type of training that very, very few police departments in this region are going through right now. It's, besides the use of lethal force, pursuit driving is one of the more risky tactics that police officers can engage in today. So this is an opportunity to train those officers through Oakland County. It's certified trainers, and I'm here to answer any questions that council may have about the training itself.
Mr. Fracassi.
Chief, I know you're excited about this, but let me, I was trying to figure out if the Oakland County Sheriff's Department is involved in that. Are they the experts in this case?
Yes, in order to be a trainer, a certified emergency vehicle operations trainer, officers have to go through a 3-week training, certification training seminar in order to do so. So all of these trainers through Oakland County have gone through that. They're all certified trainers, and so yes, they are trained.
My concern was the amount. If it's Oakland County, you think they would do that as a county, city thing, and that, free? Well, it was 2 days, 2 days, $117,000 seems like a lot for 2 days.
Yes, but just to put it in the context of Mr. Fracassi, we originally were supposed to train with the Michigan State Police Department. Michigan State Police wanted to charge us almost twice that amount. It was a 1-week training through Michigan State Police, but the type of certification that the officers would come out of and the training that they would receive was about the same. So this is substantially less than what other law enforcement agencies charge for the same type of training.
I'm really surprised that they charge anything, really. I just, that's fine. I'm glad you explained it that way, but I just would think that Oakland County could pick up a bill once in a while.
Okay. Ms. Seymour.
Yeah, thank you. I guess this 2-day training doesn't sound like a lot of time. I mean, is it really sufficient to take care of these? Are they going to be on a track so they can practice, hopefully?
Yes, they will be training at the GM Proving Grounds track out in Milford.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, just a huge track, opportunity. This is where GM does all of their testing and evaluations of the vehicles.
Yep.
So they're going to get, so it's, and also to put that piece into context also, most law enforcement agencies, when they're training their officers in emergency vehicle operations training, it's usually a 4-hour training that their officers go through, and that's it. So they may get maybe an hour on the road and 2 or 3 hours with classroom type stuff. So with ours, the first day it's mostly, you know, policies, procedures, you know, the legalities of pursuits, reasonableness type things. Second day is out on the track where they're learning intentional contacts, learning, you know, how to safely pursue a vehicle and initiate and terminate pursuits.
That's good. Well, the other states don't have tracks like we do. So
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure, because there's a lot of danger involved in what they do. And I would hope they would have actual experience, not just classroom stuff.
Yes.
And the track, that's great. I wish it was longer. You know, if 2 days does it, that's fine.
And just to follow up on your question, our brand new officers that we bring into our department, we send them all to a 5-day training. We send them all to the 5-day training through the Michigan State Police. And for the officers, the sworn officers that, you know, the veteran officers, they go through this training that we're going through right
When
now.
you say the new ones, you're talking about vehicle training, the training in the vehicle under certain methods, how to handle it and so forth.
Absolutely.
And
So,
then this goes beyond that.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know. I was there part of my background, so it's interesting.
Well,
Mr. Mandelbaum?
Is this a one-time 2-day training for all the officers, or is it multiple 2 days and the officers are staggered throughout the 2 days? Or how does the scheduling work?
It's a staggered scheduling. So I have right now 123, I believe, 123 sworn officers. All 123 of those sworn officers will go through this 2-day training on a staggered basis. So it starts, if approved by council, it'll start next month. And so it'll be a week on, week off, and I think it goes through July of this summer. And then we'll get all the sworn officers through it.
Mr. Bragwell?
Chief, I think you partially answered the question already. So this is, you know, obviously your new officers, they already went through a five-day course. And this is for your non-new officers. And this is, let's say, an enhancement, what they already know, because I'm assuming they have training in pursuit and driving and all that stuff. Now, this is just an enhancement or reinforcement of what they already know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Last time we had this type of training was, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago, and a lot of it was we had trouble scheduling training with the appropriate agencies who could do this type of training. There was there were other logistical issues that prevented us from doing it, and now we're able to do it. And our plan is every year to have our officers going through this type of training in order to keep those skills sharp.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was it probably led me to believe that they had not had this vehicle training since they were new. That's because obviously, as you said, 5 days when you're new, but that's the extent of it. So this right here will obviously, like continuing education, so.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Zorn?
Chief, I was just going to ask you to elaborate how long it's been, and you just said 5, 6 years. And this is not one weekend, but the officers are going in groups of what size?
Size between 10 and 12 officers per group, per
So
session.
for every 16 sessions, we'll have 12 officers. At 120 officers, they'll be conducting about 10 weekend sessions
Yes.
for us out at the proving grounds.
Any other questions? Mr. Mandelbaum?
Is this done on overtime for the officers or on a regular schedule?
This is a regular schedule.
And how many Oakland County Sheriff's people will be teaching each class?
I believe there are 2 certified instructors teaching each class. So they'll have, yeah, at least 2, and it may be as many as 3.
So roughly each class is running us about 11,000, 2 full-time instructors, the weekend, the renting of the proving ground. There are some other factors that all add into this price. As the chief said, at the Michigan State Police price is twice, and other cities are also paying. I wish it were free as well, but fortunately, you got to pay to rent the proving ground and such.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any other questions? I have a question is, you say that it's, part of the training is intentional contact with other cars.
Yes.
Does this $117,000 include buying new cars for it?
Thank you for the question, Council President. And for the regular pursuit type of training that they'll get, going through cones, following vehicles and things like that, we'll use our own vehicles. For the intentional contact piece of it, they have their own vehicles, and they, so we won't be using our own vehicles.
And rubber fenders?
Kind of, sort of. Yes. So it won't be our vehicles being used for that.
Okay. All right.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
Chief, what, and this is probably a question to answer itself, what is the ultimate objective that you want your individuals to get from this particular session? I mean, what would make you happy?
Reasonableness and tactics. For me, a major thing under my command is the reasonableness of pursuits. There's a wide degree of discretion for officers to initiate pursuits. Basically, if somebody disobeys a lawful command of an officer that's in a vehicle and the lights and siren are going and there's reason to believe that they see those lights and siren, officers can initiate pursuits. So that means if there's a expired plate on a vehicle and they refuse to stop with the lights and siren, we can initiate pursuit. So we have lawful authority to do so. But for me, I am very much concerned about reasonableness and tactics. Just because we can pursue does not mean that we should always initiate. And if we do initiate, a lot of times we should terminate. Probably, and I mentioned this at Council President's meeting. Out of all of the pursuits that we engage in, probably 70 to 75% of them are terminated, simply because they're not reasonable. Their conditions change where it becomes much too dangerous to continue a pursuit. I stress to my commanders that I don't want to see our officers pursuing folks for expired plates through residential neighborhoods, during the time when you may have kids out and things like that. We have to be very reasonable. So to answer your question, what I want to get out of this is, first of all, to remind our officers about the reasonableness of initiating pursuits and continuing them. And second, if they are involved in a pursuit, I want them to have the sharpest skills and abilities to engage in this pursuit, and if necessary, to terminate that pursuit through intentional contact.
Mr. Fracassi?
Just, Chief, while you're here, I read in the paper where you have two of our fallen police officers' badges on our cars. Has that been done yet?
Yes, we've got, yes,
They've done on all our cars?
yes.
Okay. All right, this will be on our agenda for the 26th. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on our agenda is the presentation of the construction projects for 2016 and a request for RFQ process.
Mr. President, our city engineer, Lee Schultz, is going to take us through his presentation. I believe she has a great PowerPoint. And,
I don't know who said it was brief. It wasn't me. We've been doing a lot of work. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you tonight. As I was preparing this item, it really makes you realize how much work we have done and how much we still have to come just this year. And it's very encouraging to see that we're making some progress on these local streets. Before we really get into the details of the PowerPoint, I just first wanted to review our request for qualification, our RFQ process that we went through to get pre-qualified contractors. We did use this process last year, and what we do is we take the basic technical and financial information submitted from these contractors and pre-qualify them if they are qualified in specific categories. So they can be pre-qualified in concrete, road construction, asphalt, water mains, We have a new one this year. There's one of these projects, we may be doing some water main pipe bursting. So that's a new pre-qualification category. And we also have a pre-qualification category for sanitary sewers this year for the anticipated projects in the section 24 and 25 areas. The only thing that is really different from last year to this year with this process is last year's program, we had one pre-qualification deadline at the beginning of the season, and if the contractors were pre-qualified at that time, they made the list and they did not have another opportunity to pre-qualify for additional projects that were coming up throughout the rest of the year. So this year, with the purchasing department, really, we've kept it open. So we have intermediate deadlines before projects are available to bid in those qualifying categories. So if someone missed it the first time and there's an asphalt project that's coming up that maybe is being bid a month later, they would still have the opportunity to submit their pre-qualification packages. We felt this was most fair just to keep it open, and last year we did have a few contractors that had missed that initial deadline and were certainly sorry when they saw the amount of work that we were putting out last year. So we definitely, all the contractors from last year, we extended their pre-qualification again for this year. And so far we've had 5 additional contractors that have been pre-qualified for our first round of projects. And then we've got 2 more proposals that we have yet to review. So there's been a lot of interest and we're getting good turnout, and we're hoping this is really helping our projects go a little more smoothly, that we're getting these quality contractors on board. Yeah, if you would. We should have 10.
Joan?
And does someone know if the license adjusted
switch
at all
over
to make
there
that
and-
more? This one?
There's a switch, there's a switch on this side. Outside. It's good. You got it. Thank you.
So even this opening slide actually has some pictures from some of our 2015 projects. The one at the top is the Northbound Northwestern Service Drive project between 8 and 9 Mile right at Northland Drive. And down along the bottom, that's Cambridge Village, the Section 13 project on the left. That's our southbound Northwestern Service Drive project. And that one of the Service Drive projects, I'm not sure which one that is. But you mind scheduling for me? Oh, we did go. Something worked before. Okay, so just to show you what I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna review the 2015 capital projects that we did, and then give you a preview of this year's 2016 projects. And then we just went through the federal aid process last month where we competed for funding for 2019, so I just wanted to review, because we did very well with that, so you can see what's coming up as far as federally funded projects. Those are the major road projects. And so this is a map of our 2015 projects, and this is something you would have seen last year when I was talking, you know, probably right around this time of year of what was upcoming. The only one that ended up not going on this map that you saw last year was that 9 Mile project between Beach and Telegraph. That project was rebid last year, and that turned into a 2016 construction project. That gives you some detail on the left on the legend if you want to review that later, so you can see the scope of work that was done.
And Lee, we rebid the 9 Mile project because the prices came in.
Right, the prices came in.
Way over budget.
Yeah, more than 20% over the engineer's estimate. So that gave us an opportunity to rebid it. We also took that opportunity to add a little bit of sanitary sewer to the project, so I'll review some of that when we get to that slide. So this is just overall a nice picture to show what the investment was in 2015. We did over 30 miles of roads that in projects. Some of that was in our section 11, which was a spot repair, so that number adds up quick when you're covering almost an entire square mile section with spot concrete repairs. We have 56,000 feet of new water mains. Those water mains were pretty much, probably entirely water main replacement. And this was $34.7 million of investment in all of our local and major streets for 2015. And these numbers do not even include Evergreen Road because technically that was my 2014 project. So I mean, that's really on top of anything that you're gonna see here tonight. And then the parcels just adjoining the property. This was 2,190 parcels where we were doing work adjacent to people's property. Maybe aggravating them a little bit last year, but now they've got cleaned up roads this year and I'm sure are very happy.
So 30.4 is what, roughly 1/8 of our road network? 240 some
Yeah, we've
miles?
got 246 total miles.
And you did just under 10 miles of water main replacement?
Yeah.
It's huge.
I mean, it was huge. It's made a big difference to the water department, absolutely. So this is just kind of summarizing what those total lengths of water main for the local street program and then the road length. All of these road projects, if you recall, for our road bond money is really first being driven by the water main needs. We had many water main needs and a lot of bad roads, so we tried to focus where we had bad roads and water mains that needed replacement, just to more strategically invest our dollars here. So yeah, you can see just in these neighborhood areas since 2011, the water department had 40 breaks just in these areas alone. So we're still working. A lot of this year's program is also driven by the water main needs. And these are some highlights. These are two pictures from the Section 13 Cambridge Village project. And I just wanted to make mention, this is one of those areas that we installed the water main under the road, which is not really our preferred place to put it, but this was a neighborhood that had many, many mature trees in the public right-of-way, the greenbelt area where we would typically install water main. So, you know, we really try and look, and we don't want to detrimentally affect the whole character of a neighborhood. And this was a good solution to come in and put it under the road since we were rebuilding the roads in this neighborhood.
Lee, why isn't it further to put water main under the road?
Just for future breaks, if you have a break or something, it's a lot easier to just get to it in a green belt or grassy area as opposed to having to dig up the road. And this is the major roads. We had a pretty large major road program last year, so that was $14.3 million of investment on these major roads. So Bridge Street, Hilltop, we had 11 mile, and that was from Franklin to the cul-de-sac. The northbound Northwestern Highway Service Drive, southbound Service Drive, First Center Drive, which is between Civic Center and the southbound Service Drive, and then we had Providence Drive. So of that, it's important to know we had over $4.5 million of costs that were covered with state and federal transportation dollars. So that 14.3 million isn't really 14.3 million out of the city's coffers. So. And these are some of the major projects a little before and after. This is from the northbound Northwestern Service Drive. That was truly one of the worst roads in the entire city of Southfield. So it was so nice to get that project moved forward and to get that all resurfaced. We did add some additional crossings, pedestrian crossings across the bridges. So we are very trying to be more sensitive these days when we're designing roads to make sure that we're taking into account all the users of the roadways and not just vehicular traffic. There you can see on the right side of that picture the southbound Northwestern Highway project. That right there is adjacent to the LTU property. Most of that project was a resurfacing, not a reconstruction. That was a long project. That was 2 miles worth of construction. And we found that strategy to be best with these service drives when we're competing for funding. They don't score very well when you're trying to just do these 1 mile segments. By enlarging the project, we get a better cost per square yard of pavement fix. So we found that to be a good strategy to securing federal dollars to move these projects forward. And then on the right, that's the 11-mile project between Franklin and the cul-de-sac at the end where BASF properties are back there. And then here's a map of where we are going to be in 2016 this year. So the 9-mile road project, we had bid that late last year, so that just started construction the end of last week. That road, if you haven't ventured down there, it is not open to through traffic. So the drivers so far don't seem to be believing this, so we're having a little trouble with people getting partway down the road and then having to turn around. So it's the westernmost part of the project that's fully closed under construction at the moment. And of course, it's the part that's opened to traffic is really just for people to get to the local businesses and to get to their neighborhoods there. So
And the
little
school.
growing pains.
And the school.
Yeah, we've got 2 schools, 2 very busy schools back there. So there's been a lot of coordination with the schools. We've been struggling these first few days, especially at school release time. So the Southfield Police Department, their traffic bureau, has been out helping us out, and the schools always have people out there too. So people need to pay attention to the signs, and they'll get it. It'll start to get better. So far, we had people that were just commuters that were getting caught up in the school traffic because they saw everyone turning to go south to get to MacArthur, and they thought, oh, this is where I'm supposed to go to get around the construction. So we had commuters getting caught up with the school traffic. So, what's a congested situation normally was made much, much worse. But,
You know, there aren't any no-through traffic signs out there.
I think what's out there is that the road is closed ahead. We're actually going to add another sign tomorrow right at 9 Mile to try and capture the driver's attentions. The detour signs all posted for the traffic to use 10 Mile Road, and they
The only problem
figure it
is,
out pretty quick.
cars coming down Telegraph Road, turning right on 9 Mile, are busy not running into traffic on the other side of the road, so they can't see the sign. Plus, the sign is over the top of the car.
So what our traffic engineer just suggested is to put a barricade over that first, or that right lane, so like on the north side of the eastbound traffic for 9 Mile, so that when the cars that might be trying to turn right onto 9 Mile, they actually look at it, forces them to read the sign that the road is closed ahead. So we're hoping that will grab their attention before they end up on a road that doesn't go through. It's a lot of regular commuters that use these through roads, so usually within a week things will calm down as people understand what's going on and they start altering their driving patterns. But yeah, painful. So this is a similar slide just to show you where we're at this year. We've got 15.7 miles of pavement improvement scheduled for this year. 85,000 feet of new water main. This is a $41.6 million investment in our local and major roads. And this is adjoining 1,500 parcels in the city of Southfield. So that's local residential properties as well as commercial properties. And here's a list of all the projects for this year. The local projects start at the top and then progress to the major road projects. And that's giving you just the dollars per project, and then gives you a short synopsis of what we're doing there. So the first project on this list, which actually we just opened bids for today and the prices came in good, is our Section 15 Kingsley Estates project. So this project originally was driven, again, by the water main needs, but this project is a little eclectic because we have different things going on in different areas. What drove the water main needs was in the Kingsley Estates and on Ranchwood. Water main replacement needed to occur on both of those streets. Ranchwood is an asphalt road and everything else is concrete. So that asphalt road is being fully rehabbed after that water main replacement. And in the Kingsley Estates, we have sections that are good, some sections not so good. So we really, this is a good mix of fixes for what's appropriate. We have areas of concrete of these streets that are being fully reconstructed in concrete, and many other areas that are just spot concrete repairs. And then with the water main replacements in this Kingsley Estates subdivision, some areas where we're trying to preserve mature trees, we're using a directional drilling method, but still the majority of the project will be open cut. And then on the Roseland, Alhambra, La Crosse, that's the Southfield Manor subdivision up there. Their water main is not as old as the other water main, but those roads still are in real rough shape. Roseland Drive really will be totally reconstructed, and then Alhambra and La Crosse will get spot concrete repairs. It'll be nice to get this whole quadrant of section 15 taken care of. Just so you see, I use the same format for each one of these projects. So it gives you the schedule if we have it. This is one of the first projects that's going to get started. So construction should be starting next month in April, late April. And then down here, the symbols. So this is like a roller. That means it's an asphalt project. This is our concrete truck, so there's also concrete roads in there. So asphalt roads, concrete roads, and water main components of that project.
Lee, can you touch on communications with the neighborhoods in advance of a project starting, what you typically send out, notices and such?
Yeah, for one like this, we just opened the bids today. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking to hold a public meeting for these local street projects and just let people know what's coming. So a lot of people, once you get into these neighborhoods, they want to see what's happening in front of their house. So we usually do this in more of an open house style format so people can come up and have an opportunity to flip through the plans and with me and our engineering consultants on site to get them to their place and get their questions all answered. So these are some pictures of what's out there. On that first picture, you can see the long asphalt stretch. That's Ranchwood, and here's that end section of Roseland Drive. Roseland Street is the street that's in pretty rough shape, the whole street. There's one segment, I think, that's in good shape just because we had paved it with concrete for the first time, sometime since I've been here, but it was probably 15 years ago. And then Berkshire Street is a street with a lot of mature trees you can see in this picture, and this is where we would be using our trenchless technology, that directional drilling, so that we're not having to take trees down. We do consult with our forester on these projects when we start seeing trees that are in conflict, and he goes out, with our set of plans. He can see where we think we need to take trees down, so we get his input so we know if they're quality trees we should be trying to preserve, or if they're maybe junk or dead, and we work with him on all of our projects.
Lee, before you change that, are you doing Winchester?
No, not as part of this project,
Are you doing anything in Winchester?
not this year. So that's definitely on our radar, that whole
It comes
mile.
out to Evergreen Road, the road is gone, it's all
Yes.
gravel.
Yeah, they'll just be keeping the potholes
And there's
filled to
no
keep
such
it
thing as
safe.
a pothole in that area where the boulevard is, on both sides of the boulevard.
Mhm.
It reminds me of where Groton is, on both sides of Groton Drive where the
Right.
boulevard is. And I came that way this evening, and it's entirely gone, it's gravel.
So part of the strategy, we have quite a bit to do in section 15. So we wanted to get these neighborhood streets all done before we did Winchester, because Winchester is going to be taking a lot of the construction traffic in and out of this project area. So we're going to beat it up a bit, and we didn't, we have a neighborhood also on the south side of Winchester that also needs water main replacement. So we're trying to be strategic in how we're programming here so that we're not directing too much construction traffic on a road that we've just completed.
The term directional drilling seems to raise a couple of eyebrows. You're talking about drilling for the placement of the water main, right?
Yeah, so with the directional drilling, that trenchless technology, they basically just open up a pit,
Right.
2 pits, actually, one at each end. And you see a lot of the utility companies use it when you see their big giant spools
The gas lines,
of theirs.
all the gas lines are
Yeah,
doing.
that makes
Right.
sense.
And so they come through with the machine and can very precisely actually directional drill underground without disturbing anything at the surface. So it's a great technology. It's more expensive than open cut traditionally, but it's definitely worth it when you're in some of these situations where you have mature trees and you're not wanting
No problem.
to disturb the surface. And then section 19, the Edgewood Hills subdivision, that's Peekskill and Waycross. This one is also water main replacement and asphalt rehabilitation on all of these roads. And then we've got our section 24, area 3, and it's area 3 because this is part of that larger plan that I had shown you about the roads and the water mains and the sewer plans that we have for about a 1 square mile. The half square mile is section 24 in the north half of section 25. And so this is the first phase of that. We are still waiting to hear back from the feds about our FEMA grant. If you recall, this project in particular was including a lift station at the corner of 10 Mile and Pierce. And I did see a little email go back and forth today, so hopefully there's some movement on that and we'll be hearing back shortly.
Lee, I know it's on 19 and also on 24, you didn't have a start date. Is that simply because you're waiting on?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when we're gonna start, so I hate to guess. I mean, all of these projects I'm showing you will start this year and hopefully complete this year. But the first ones to be bid are really, our first 4 projects are the ones that have firm dates on. Beyond that, it'd be a guessing game.
If the FEMA grant comes in, does that help lower the costs of
Yeah.
the overall project?
Well, that's the total cost of the project, and that includes the cost of that sanitary lift station. So the FEMA grant was, I think, just about $800,000. So that's $800,000 that we would be able to, of FEMA's money that we'd be able to put toward this investment.
And is the lift station in the intersection, or is it off to the, on where the side?
It's actually on the west side of Pierce. So it's greenbelt. It's really all below grade with just a little bit of equipment at the surface. So most of it you won't see, but they're pretty amazing and way bigger than you would think underground.
So that would be included as part of the Pierce Street reconstruction.
Yeah, all the utility work happens first. So this project is also a separation for that street. So both Jeanette and Hilton have combined sewers on those streets. So we would be installing new sanitary sewers on those streets. And Pierce, there's some sanitary sewer work in Pierce, but it goes all the way up to Southfield mostly as a road project. What that lift station will do though, with that sanitary lift station, this neighborhood north of Jeanette and Hilton is already separated, and all of their sewage does drain down into this same, right down Pierce Street. So we will be, by installing that lift station, it also acts as a backflow preventer. So when the county system in 10 Mile may surcharge, it will act as that backflow preventer to stop it from surcharging that whole neighborhood. So it offers us a lot of protection for just that one sanitary lift station and 2 streets of sewers.
So the lift station's already there, we're just,
The lift station's not there
It's
yet,
not
so
there.
it's,
Oh, that's
that
the one
is,
installed.
that's part of the scope of this project. That's why it's a heftier price tag at 4.6 million for just those 3 streets. And this is section 25 in area 9. And this on the overall map, well, first I should say you've seen this before as well, because this was also part of the water main sewer separation and roads. So we're doing a little more studying on this sewer separation right now, because initially the idea was when we did the separation is that we would be able to send the storm water to the west so that it was not any longer in the combined sewer district. And that would save us the money that we have to pay to treat all of our combined sewer flow. And right now, we're looking at the dollars and cents a lot more closely and trying to figure out if we cannot send it west, which there appear to be challenges to doing that, we need to make sure it's worth doing the separation. So before we invest those two, that about 1 square mile, south half of 24 and north half of 25, that was about $50 million in investment there. And if 6 million of it is in sanitary sewers, that maybe it's we just need to make sure that that's gonna be worth it to the city and save us dollars in the long run. It's okay if it's a little extra money up front and there's payback to it, but because that combined sewer district has bond obligations because of the facility they built off of I-75 to help with basement backups, you know, we're obligated to help pay that off. So that's what we're investigating right now, are kind of the dollars and cents and how much that's really gonna save us. So the part that's important is that I've got to figure this out before I go to bid, because I need to know if I'm putting a sewer in or not. So this project, unfortunately, has the potential to get bumped to next year if we don't get this straightened out. And these roads are in bad shape. I really, really want to get in there. And we do have water main breaks here, but we just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And because that is going to be the start of, you know, that whole $50 million investment. And we just need to make sure it's right.
Do our combined sewers go through a meter on the way to the water treatment?
The combined sewer, it does go through a meter.
There are multiple meters throughout.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
system.
there's multiple meters, but is it right at the, like our city limits? There's multiple sewers that cross the boundaries. Do you know, Rhett, if they're? Yeah, I believe that the way that they bill is still based on our water usage. So they use our drinking water usage, they average that over 5 years, and then determine, you know, what our
And
flow
we-
is.
For our newer members of council, 3 years ago, we were supposed to be moving to a metered sewage system. And Southfield was probably one of the winning communities on that. And then they took a look at the entire system, and then they said they wanted to go back to the old way. We're still monitoring all the metered sewers. At the end of the day, we want to reduce as much of our stormwater out of that combined system at our meter at 8 Mile and Southfield Road. You know, so that's when we talk about separating, that's where we're going with this. But the Richard Kuhn, this is part of that Richard Kuhn
Yeah, George W.
facility
Kuhn.
behind Home Depot on I-75. So we still would have part of the debt even as we separate that. And that's all part of the decision tree on this.
The point I was getting at is, and we've talked pretty much around it, and that is, if they do a calculation based on our drinking water usage, then we aren't gonna get any relief when we separate the combined sewers.
Yeah, so they would have to open it up at that point, just knowing that this area, we still have other areas that will fully be combined, but they would have to basically pull this specific area out if it was separated, and then they just give us the you know, the lower rate, because we're just gonna be sending sewage and not that stormwater on top of it. So volume-wise and what they designed for, and that George W. Kuhn facility off of I-75, that is really to handle the storm events. You know, the regular everyday sewage, even from high-rise condominiums or anything, is really nothing compared to what happens when we get a rainstorm.
Yeah.
So if we can just remove the storm sewer, it makes a big difference. But some of that calculation as far as, you know, what is that savings going to be for this district, that's kind of the nuts and bolts that we're really getting into, so we can make sure that this is a good investment.
Yeah, environmentally, it will be a win, because we will be sending rainwater back to a stream rather than to wastewater
Right, to a
treatment.
treatment facility.
Yeah, and that'll be a real win. But we get a break, actually, if they do it calculated on our drinking water, when we get a 100-year rainstorm, it doesn't cost us anything. I mean, except
Right,
flooded back.
for that
flooded
area.
basements.
But there is some financial obligation for
I
the improvements
understand that.
that they already made.
I understand that. I mean, that's such an
So-
archaic system that in the 21st century, it seems like we ought to be able to come up with something that's more equitable to charge for what we actually use rather than use a pencil and paper to figure out how much drinking water we use and multiply it by 3.
Yeah, You know, and we're in a unique position because we're just on the upstream limits of that combined sewer district. So I think when we saw that, we're like, hey, this, you know, could potentially be a great opportunity for us to divert some of that flow. And hopefully that all works out, because ideally, like you said, environmentally, it really works. But, you know, there's, I don't know how many other people, a million other properties in this GWK district that are all combined, and if it were cheap and simple to separate them, it would have been done a long time ago, so.
Yeah.
And this is our Section 28 project. This project, it's pretty big. It spans many streets over here. This is an area where it's kind of scattered throughout all of these streets. The water department has been fighting very frequent water main breaks over here. And all of these are asphalt roads. So this is water main replacement and then full asphalt rehabilitation. And this is the neighborhood where we are looking into do this water main pipe bursting. That's another trenchless technology. Same results really as that directional drilling that I spoke of. In this case, they take a head on another pipe and they kind of force it through the old water main, and it breaks apart the old one. So then you're putting the new one in the same place that the old one is. You still have to dig the individual pits at the water services to reconnect people into that new piece of pipe, but it's just like putting a brand new pipe in the ground. So
Like
we're
like a snake shedding its skin.
Yes. And, you know, in this neighborhood, again, it was because of a lot of the mature trees that we have off the sides of the roads. There's not curb and gutter or anything on these streets, so it's a neighborhood that has a lot of character, and we don't want to impact that in a negative way. So
And
I'm
that-
hoping that the pipe bursting goes forward, because it'll be the first time that we've used it in Southfield, and I'd love to see it. Again, it tends to be a little more expensive, so we just have to make sure that the dollars and cents work. We are rehabilitating the roads, so then you start, well, what's going to be cheaper? Maybe just to open cut it in the middle of the road, or is this pipe bursting going to be the best solution? And most likely when we go to bid, we'll bid it as an alternate, so that we can price compare and make our decision.
What's the material of the old pipe and the new pipe?
So the new pipe is either ductile or cast iron in this neighborhood, and then the new pipe that goes in is a plastic pipe. All of our new water mains we are installing as plastic pipes on these capital improvement projects. So the plastic pipe is less expensive, and in corrosive soils, which we do have in many areas around Southfield, that metal pipe, you start seeing the deterioration just from the soil conditions. So you don't have that potential when you're using the plastic pipe. It's come a long way, and the plastic pipe industry has been spouting their benefits for a long time, and it took Southfield a long time to kind of open up to it. You know, we've been using ductile for a long time, and for the most part, it's treated us well. But then, you know, you get these corrosive soils where we're not getting the life out of our ductile iron pipes, and it's very expensive. So this is a great opportunity to maximize our dollar investment in our water system.
It's interesting, plastic.
And this is section 34. Last year we were also in section 34 in the road south of, well, actually Secluded Lane wasn't included in it. That's in pretty good shape. But from Melrose all the way down to West Haven, all those streets got new water mains and redone asphalt roads last year. So this was just a second phase to that project to take care of the water mains and rehabilitate all of these roads in asphalt. And in section 35, this is a project that council approved last year. This one started construction last year. We thought we were going to get 2 streets done, but didn't quite make it that far. So we got Magnolia done. Magnolia had the main storm sewer that the rest of the project areas are going to be draining to. So that really naturally had to be the first road that we started with. So that project is only about 11% complete. So we've got a lot of work to do. We do have a phase 2 to section 35, but we really postponed it because we still have a full construction season worth of work in this neighborhood, and don't want to impact too many streets in a row. Sometimes people have to park elsewhere, if we're paving a concrete driveway or something, and we've got to give them somewhere to go within reason.
And in section 34 and 35, we're targeting for the neighborhood enterprise zone. So this public investment, the right economic development incentives, hopefully we get some real tax-based generation happening in that housing stock.
And then this is one that you've seen recently. This is our Northland Drive project. We're opening bids for this project tomorrow. And just so you recall, Northland Drive, this is the piece where the majority of the road is being reduced from that 4-lane boulevard to a 3-lane cross-section. It's all gonna be concrete. What we've added to this project is some sanitary sewer construction because of what's happening at the Northland Mall site. We've got some private entities that currently their sewage drains into the mall property and is then pumped by the mall, like goes to the mall's basement somewhere. It's so interconnected over there because it all was developed as one giant piece and one development. So we're building some sewer so we can pick up that Sakwa booster pumping station that's currently in the median of Northland Drive, and then also the Vibe Credit Union that's at the corner at the Service Drive. They both have sanitary sewers that run to the mall. So we're building some sewers so that we can provide them service ourselves and not have to worry about what's happening with the future of the mall there. And this is just a diagram that you saw before. This shows a 3-lane cross-section and then the 10-foot wide non-motorized pathway. That was the asphalt path council approved that's going in on the north side of the road. So there's that Sakwa pumping station that does have a bathroom facility, drains into the mall, and then Vibe Credit Union, same story. So a lot of these things, like who even knows until you start getting, real involved in the Northland Mall property. And if there's talk about demolition, suddenly we're like, we're so interconnected. So there's some opportunity with the road project to take care of that so it doesn't become a problem.
This is, well, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but that Vibe Credit Union is legal. It's being moved. So would that affect your plans at any of them? You just want that to do this?
Right now, we have it all planned to do that sanitary sewer. I don't know if that building is still viable. It may not be Vibe, but it may be a new user coming into it. So unless I hear differently that building's gonna be demolished as part of some great master plan, we will plan to provide sanitary sewage for that property. So that's something that can be removed from the scope of work, if new information comes up in a timely manner.
Will this road be closed during construction?
Fully closed, yes. So, you've got the bus transit center on the Northland Mall property, and we have communicated with them, and we've got a plan for how the buses, they know which way they need to come. They're gonna be using that ring road around the Northland Mall property. And, pedestrian access, we're building some temporary pedestrian access. Because of that transit center, we want to hopefully minimize anyone trying to walk through our construction area. So there's going to be, a lot of the signage on site is going to be for some temporary pedestrian pathways so that if they were, let's say, walking up Greenfield, that they could safely get to that transit center. Yeah.
Just on the transportation center, meetings with DDOT, with the road being closed, they're actually gonna move a number of their stops to 9 Mile. And they're actually
That's
looking
nice.
forward to this as an opportunity to explore maybe some different bus stops and items that they're working with there, so.
And then with the stage construction, they had, of course, last year when we were doing the northbound service drive in the same area, they had rerouted all of that traffic in those stops. So they still have that service drive corridor that, they can do some stops there still. So that's good to hear, though. The less people that you have coming to that area, the less potential conflicts. And this is our Bell Road project. So this is a $3.7 million project. This is the reconstruction of Bell Road. It's going to be asphalt still like it is today, but we're going to have concrete curbs on this road. And then with the big addition being a bike path, just on one side, really more for financials. There was some feedback that people would like it on both sides, but we've got to start somewhere. So we thought we'd get the sidewalk in, and as far as which side of the street. There was also some discussion about that. We've done some looking back to analyze where we needed to be and then the physical constraints that are out there. We've actually shifted the road just a couple feet to the east so that we can fit it in on the west side and have less impact to the adjacent properties. We really, when you get to 12 Mile, we've got to be on the west side. And when you're down at 11 Mile, the Sherry Zedek property is right here. And we wanted that connection on the west side of the street for anyone that may be walking to Sherry Zedek there.
Just before you leave that, you say the west side, did you get right away?
We don't need any additional right-of-way to get that in. We have the right-of-way. It was just the impact really to some landscaping that we're trying to minimize.
I know there was a tree that was holding up the sidewalk.
Oh, you mean at the north end? Yeah, we do need some easement from him, and I guess we did meet with him, and what we told him is that, you know, this is our first choice, is to have the sidewalk here. We would require an easement from his property, but we don't have to put it there. We could hug it to the back of the curb if we don't get that easement from him. We have not secured it yet. But I felt like when we met with him, we made a good argument, and he was gonna discuss that with his wife and get back to us. So if we don't get that easement, we're still gonna get that sidewalk all the way up to 12 Mile.
Take the first 8 feet of his tennis court.
And we won't have to take his tennis courts.
Will Bell Road be closed as well?
No, well, actually, we've kind of gone back and forth. I think where we've ended up is that we are going to close it to through traffic. Think about it, because it's 2 lanes and we're putting 2 lanes back in. It's very difficult for us to be able to reconstruct such a narrow road and be productive. So this one will probably end up being a north half, south half type of construction. And when we do that and we say it's closed through traffic, of course the residents that, you know, if their subdivision only has access off of Bell Road, even when that piece is under construction, we will get them in. So.
Lee, is the roundabout for Coventry Woods and Bell still in the plan?
It's, you know, I just sent another email today. We haven't secured agreement from all the property owners. We were looking at a roundabout at Bell Road and Coventry Woods that's currently an intersection where there's a stop sign. When we had the public meeting, one of the #1 things that we heard were complaints about speeding traffic. And I can't do a whole lot about that. That's the Chiefs area, right?
It's been a long
But
time problem.
it really
Just
has,
blowing
and
through.
it's very consistent. They talk about that people think that stop sign's optional, and so we looked at it, and really we could fit a roundabout, a small roundabout in there nicely, and we felt that it would be a good traffic calming. It really forces the traffic to slow down to enter through the roundabout, and then it gives an opportunity for some beautification in a center median island. But we really wanted the buy-in from those 4 adjacent property owners, and we're, you know, we don't want to force it on anyone, but we presented it to them. They sounded agreeable at first, and then we've got some people that have a lot of questions, so we're trying to set up a follow-up meeting so we can iron that out. So it would be really nice to see. One of the properties, like their driveway, is right on Bell Road, and they have some concerns when we design a roundabout there. There are some median islands that come up to it, and they want to make sure that they can still get in and out of their driveway from either direction. We feel like we've addressed those concerns, so we're looking forward to meeting with them again.
Lee, do you have any concerns about, when you add the sidewalk on the west side of Bell Road, if you were to put in a roundabout, how would walkers be protected in a way? It just seems like sometimes when people are driving around the roundabout, it's kind of hard for people to cross.
Right, well, with our roundabouts out here, you see those crosswalks set back just a little bit from the actual circle of the roundabout. So that gives them a safe place to cross. Now, they're really just crossing Coventry Woods at that location. And although we may have them coming, what we tried to do, there's not sidewalk that we're building on the east side, but we are including some pedestrian crossings like that we're going to stripe and sign. And just as a way, because not everyone's going to go to one place to cross the road. So we're trying to give some of the major connector side streets that feed into the subdivisions a crossing from the east to west side. Certainly it's not going to be stop signs, but it'll be somewhere for them to cross, and with signage that hopefully drivers will be more expecting to see people at that location. So slowing people down sounds like the biggest concern, that there's not a whole lot we can do with that, but we felt the roundabout was a good starting point. So.
Would there be an added cost if you put a roundabout in?
A little bit more cost is in the scope of a project that's $3.7 million. It's not much because we don't need to acquire right away that we would pay for. There are some little corners that we need from the property owners, but we're not proposing to pay them for it. It would just, we would want to see like this as a mutual benefit to the community.
So there's no additional construction cost?
A small amount. I don't have that number exactly. I mean, I can find out for you though.
To Mrs. Morris's question, most of the walkers go up Pontchartrain if they're going to Young Israel, because there's a path through the park to Young Israel. So many of them would come out of Bellwood, either side of Bellwood or Coventry Woods down and cross there to obviously the people that are in Kenworth or Shevington would just go Lincolnshire to walk over Young Israel.
Now, what we're hoping is that besides just the people that walk to the school and to Young Israel, that with a couple extra crossings, you know, it's really such a beautiful street and it's very wooded, and it would be a lovely place to go for a bike ride or to go for a walk and like get to Myers if you just needed a destination to run and pick a few things up. So it's really not that far once you get up to 12 Mile to head over to that Till 12 shopping center area.
Is there any additional lighting going in? Because that road also gets a little
Right,
dark.
street lighting is a totally different animal, and we've got, that is typically put in by special assessment, and that's something that if the residents along that corridor or in that whole area, it would really need to be initiated by a petition, special assessment petition. So, and then we get DTE involved early on, so they help us prepare cost estimates and such. So that's something we're going to be looking more into this year, is to make sure that we have all the details worked out of what that process is, because I've had more and more people in recent years that seem to be inquiring about streetlights in areas that don't have them.
I'm getting a lot of, on that point, had 3 in the last month.
Oh, you have?
About streetlights. Yeah.
In different neighborhoods?
Yeah,
or-
and I've given them the same answer you just gave. It's a special assessment.
Right.
Are you willing to pay for it?
And we can't use our road dollars to pay for that street lighting. So that's, you know, the funding source really has to come from the property owners.
I think it's just from I've been over this area numerous times, and just from a quality of life standpoint, I think once you get this done, this will improve the quality of life for the individual that live there. Because when I was there, almost daily, invariably, I see a mother, a child, and a stroller going down Bell
Right.
Road. That is the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous things, well, potentially dangerous
Right.
things I've seen.
Especially with the conditions of the road.
Yeah, and condition of the road, I think this will be added to the quality of life, in addition to, vehicle maintenance, and that will additionally add to the quality of life, once you get this completed.
Right, and when you talk about the pedestrians that are walking on this
Right.
road, if you, I mean, and you've driven it, but for anyone who maybe hasn't driven on Bell Road, it's like, this is one of our more hilly
Yeah.
roads. You
Right.
like forget that you're in Southfield for a second with these hills, so, which is beautiful when you're on it, but it just makes visibility when you've got people walking in the street more of a safety concern. So this is gonna be a wonderful, in my mind, safety improvement to this whole community.
Right.
And then our 9 Mile Road reconstruction project. So you've seen this before. This construction just started at the end of last week. To remind you of the scope of work here, this is widening from a 2-lane to a 3-lane road. This is going to be an asphalt road and concrete curbs. So getting rid of the shoulders over here, and besides the school traffic that we'll be dealing with until sometime in June, whenever that date is that school gets out. But we've been working with the schools and with the police department and our traffic engineering group, so coming up with the best plan and willing to modify as we need. And this is to show you our 2019, our fiscal year 2019 projects that we successfully got when we just were at the Oakland County Federal Aid Committee last month. So the bullet points, I think, tell a great story, because Southfield has been aggressive and I think doing a fantastic job preparing applications to compete for this funding, because it is very competitive. So for this 2019 fiscal year, there was $10.26 million in federal funds available. And when they say federal funds, that is not the total project cost, but everything when you go to the Federal Aid Committee is all just about the federal dollars. So that's how much was available in federal funds. There was, and that's just Oakland County, there were $83 million in requests for these funds in Oakland County. So this is just telling a little picture of what our road needs are in this county and how overall road funding is very lacking. Southfield got these 4 projects, and I'll review them in a little more detail, but the main story, we got 2.73 million of those federal dollars. That was 26% of the available federal dollars for the 2019, and that's in all of Oakland County. So yeah, I think that tells a good story.
Everybody would be very glad that 9 Mile between Rosher and Telegraph,
Yes,
we hear a lot about
I
that.
do hear a lot about that too.
Oh, okay, well, 10 Mile between Northwestern and Southfield is horrendous.
So-
Since you keep going to Greenfield.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's about
I'm
right.
like, yeah, that
Very
10 mile
bad.
between, mostly between Evergreen and Greenfield, yeah, that's a 2 mile stretch. That is an Oakland County road. And the last time that we met with Oakland County, absolutely that 2 mile piece came up, and as one of our priorities that we would like them to focus on, as well as Lasser Road between Civic Center and the freeway. That's like that last little piece of Lasser Road that the county has not addressed, like within our city limits. And it's in bad shape. It's very wide, it's a very expensive project, and it, you know, they submit for it. It does not score well. So the only way I feel like that's gonna get funded is when these federal dollars or our Act 51 dollars, you know, with the state's improvements, that's when we're gonna see
We're looking at
it.
that as, you know, every time someone looks at the federal logo, eventually we're gonna have a deal come through. We'll tie that to the state Transportation Economic Development Fund, and engineering's done. We've actually received 2 of those grants the last 2 years. Even though it's a county road, we've already had a conversation with the county that it would be a joint application, letting the economic development funds drive that. So I see that as a better opportunity. I wanted to touch on the county roads. Lee and Rec Grondeville from OHM and Gary Trussell, I've had conversations with them. And I think we need to, if you look at how the county roads are scoring, those roads in Southfield, Lasser, 10 mile, 12 mile, they're not, through the pointing in its system, they're falling further behind in the condition, but also in their scoring each year. And the thought process is in the next year, we may want to sit down with them and, even though they're county roads, talk about bringing some resources to the table to make those projects happen. You know, that's a bit of a trick bag, but if it means those roads are taken care of, 3-4 years ago, that $10.6 million was $17 million. It seems to be a smaller amount. What we don't know in the $10.6 million federal aid in the new FAST legislation that was passed, was that last fall by the feds. There's probably going to be another 10-11% increase in that number. If that happens, we could have a 5th project come into
Yeah,
play.
if it ends up, yeah, because when they have their list, when we come to the meetings, and it's all list based on a point system, so they just really go down the list until they run out of federal dollars. So the very next project that wasn't funded was the 5th application that we submitted. So if additional money comes forward, we really have an opportunity that we may get a 5th project, and that 5th project, could you go back one slide so I just pointed out, was the southbound Northwestern Service Drive project from Evergreen down to 9 Mile. So,
And some of these roads, based on the condition, we may try to advance $19 for 18 construction season. Again, it reduces our cost of pothole. The Franklin Road, if you ask the guys in Public Works, which are the worst roads they're pothole filling right now, Franklin's where the service drive between 8 and 9 Mile was last year. So when I interact with them, you know, any of these roads that we can move up a year, that helps us out. The other item out there is we are waiting for the CMAQ, the congestion mitigation air quality rules to be rewritten. We've actually conceptually designed a roundabout for Franklin at 11 Mile that would allow us to connect 11 Mile where it doesn't go through. And if that happens, those federal dollars could be coming there. So we're kind of looking at there's multiple pieces of these buckets to go after. In the next couple months, I'm probably going to have the finance committee look at, we'll probably study what Troy did on some of their county roads to leverage the dollars, because I think they've developed a pretty good model where Troy is actually putting in general fund dollars to modify the county's involvement on roads. So we're going to look at some other options there too. I'm concerned that our roads, 12 mile, 10 mile, they're just going to fall further down in the scoring process unless there's some local participation.
What are the, you bring up scoring, what are some of the heavy hitters we need to improve their scoring?
So I think the biggest thing, we've got the average daily traffic counts. So a road that carries the most traffic is going to score well. And then it's really the cost of the fix, like per square yard, is it? So that's where we have to get very creative with these 3R projects are what they call the rehabilitation projects. It's not total reconstruction. The majority of the federal aid goes to these rehabilitation projects because they want us to invest in these rehabilitation projects that extend the life of the road instead of just automatically going to total reconstruction. So there are safety points that you can get for different things when there are obstructions like trees and things.
Yeah,
So
I see where you're going. Let's just say take Lasser from Civic Center to the freeway. That's horrible. So
Right.
that it's traffic. I know it's busy, but you don't get any points for chaos. I mean, it's just horrible. That portion of the road is busy.
Yeah.
And then it's just it's a mess.
and right now it's probably really in need of a total reconstruction.
Right.
So when you're looking at a total reconstruction for how many lanes is that? 5?
Half mile, 5 lanes.
Right.
5
That's
lanes,
the median.
it's like, it turns into a lot of dollars per square yard. And what we have been able to do, a great part of the reason we've been so successful is that our road bond has allowed us to increase our local match. So the standard that people apply for is 80% federal dollars for construction, and it always requires a minimum 20% match. So the road commission, they will only submit for 20% local match because their dollars are tight. But it's like you want some money or you want no money. And because of our road bond, those extra dollars, we're able to increase our match to 30, 40, or up to 50%. You can get up to 3 extra points. And that makes or breaks some of our projects. And some of these projects, like one that you'll see on Evergreen, we're putting together a big 2-mile project between 11 Mile and 13 Mile. We had funding for everything but this half-mile segment. So we were really thinking, we're gonna do that half-mile segment no matter what, because we've got everything around it. We don't wanna leave that one piece not done. So when we submitted for that project, it's like submit it with 50% match. It's better to get something than nothing, because we're gonna do that piece anyway when we move forward. So it's a little bit of a game, but I feel like we're good at it. We're getting a lot of dollars, and it's helping us fix our roads. So this was just really a review of some of the projects, and these years that I have them listed under are not necessarily the year that they got the federal aid for. Some of them we are advanced constructing as we combine some of these different applications that were successful and put them into a bigger project. So we hope that we get great construction prices when we go out with these bigger projects. And I think my next few slides kind of go in a little more detail for these. So in 2017, we're looking to complete our evergreen border to border, city limit to city limit of fixing all of Evergreen Road. So we've got one application from 9 Mile to Northwestern Service Drive, and we have secured funding. That fiscal year, I think is fiscal year 18, we'll be advanced constructing these. You can advance construct, you can't put construction off past a year, or else you lose your funding. So, you know, there's some flexibility, but it's not limitless. So that south piece will actually be a road diet. That's gonna go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, similar to the same cross-section really that we have on Evergreen between 8 and 9 Mile. And then the other piece was actually 4 different federal aid applications from 11 Mile up to 13 Mile. And that project it's gonna be a little bit of a mix of some areas of reconstruction and then some areas of rehabilitation, just depending on what the pavement conditions are. Mostly, well, from Winchester all the way up to 13 Mile, that will be asphalt like it is today. And then south between 11 Mile and Winchester, some of that is just gonna be some spot concrete. And then we have other areas that are just really totally gone. So those will be total concrete. Or no, those we're gonna, the reconstruction part, we're gonna reconstruct an asphalt to blend with the rest of the project to the north. Ms. Seymour, did you have a question?
Yeah, Winchester. We're not doing anything on Evergreen.
Well, this project, this is just kind of showing some of the major road projects that are coming in future years. So this is Evergreen. So it's going to be Evergreen from 8 Mile up to Northwestern. So that's the only piece that's not done south of us here. And then to the north from 696 all the way up to 13 Mile.
Well, I mean, Evergreen up to Winchester, that's entering our city, and it's so bad.
That is part of this project.
Good,
So
good. The last time you were here, you said didn't seem to fit into the program, but
and yeah, sometimes it's a matter of, you know, have we secured the funding? That's also a wide road right when you get by 11 Mile, and you know, we really have to have some of those federal dollars to help make those projects move forward.
It's not only bad to drive on because it's the entrance to our city, coming north, and coming from the north, it makes us look bad, I think.
Yeah, it is so nice to get these major roads completed for just that reason.
Right, I agree.
And this one, because we've got some shared borders with other communities, so we've already had a lot of discussions with Beverly Hills. They are cost sharing for the northernmost half mile, and then we are also including the 13 Mile and Evergreen intersection, the whole intersection, because they own 3/4 of it, but if we're doing, you know, this 2 Mile project, it's gonna be a great opportunity for them to get the intersection done.
It's going to be done
This is all 2017, so that's next year project.
That's great, though, that's great. Glad to hear that.
Is Lathrop Village gonna?
And then Lathrop Village, I've just mentioned it to their city manager, but nothing formal has taken place yet. So I think they still have the same city manager right now, so I need to reach out.
Yes.
Oh, I guess I just want to mention one more thing. When I talk about different fiscal years, one of these segments, and I don't even remember which one now, it's been so long, does have fiscal year 2016 dollars. So that north 2 Mile piece will be one project, and we will be going to bid on that like at the end of summer, beginning of fall this year, even though it won't actually go to construction until next year. So you'll see me back here with an MDOT agreement for that 2 Mile section. I'll also have to have the agreements between us and the city of Beverly Hills and Lathrop Village.
Mr. Fugazi, did you have a question?
I have, are you through, Lee?
I've got a few more slides
Oh,
to talk
No,
about.
when,
Okay.
I don't want to beat her up until she gets through.
On this one, real quick, I thought you were doing 12 to 13 on everything. Originally, you were going to do it this year, right?
Right, that got moved around a little bit when we got some additional funding, and then we could turn it into a 2 Mile.
Thank you.
Jeremy, you come up with the money.
And then we've got this piece of 11 Mile, which is another piece that will be really nice to get done. So this is 11 Mile from Bell Road to about Arlington. So that's really a neighborhood street, but it's kind of where that service drive separates from the freeway when you're on the westbound 696 service drive. So that piece of road, particularly west of Lasser, is in really bad shape. So it'll be nice to get that cleaned up, and design hasn't really started yet. It was just a successful application, and we're looking to do that in 2018. Also probably in 2018, I've got a couple of different big things going on here. We have 2017 bridge dollars to do the 9-mile bridge over the Evans Branch. This is between Telegraph and Lasser. So that's a very large bridge, and we just got 2019 road funding to do this piece of the road. So I am just started talking with our consultants to see if we can get these projects to overlap, because at some point that road is going to be entirely closed because that bridge is going to be gone. And I would love the opportunity to get to do the road project at the same time, so that we're not impacting these people 2 years in a row. So hopefully, if we can get that to come together, bid it a little late in 17 so we secure our funding and then construct it in 18, or maybe just get some of the bridge work going ahead of time while still leaving at least one lane open in each direction. So it's a significant bridge investment there. And this is our northbound Northwestern Highway project that we just got funding for. So this is from the Southfield Freeway, which is here, Southfield Road. This is that piece. It's still considered the service drive, even though it's not quite hugging the Northwestern here. But from there all the way up to Lasser Road. And again, making a really big project is how we scored good points, because you get that, you do large quantities, you get great prices, great unit prices for that kind of work. Looking 2019 for that project. This is our last one. This is our Franklin Road piece that we just got the federal funding for 2019. It sits on the 2019 projects right now, but as Fred mentioned, we are planning to submit a CMAQ application. It's just another avenue to get federal dollars, and we're looking to submit a CMAQ application to do a roundabout at this intersection. So that project, I think the funding comes up quicker than our federal aid regular road projects that we program 3 years in advance. So if that one, let's say, has to be spent in 2018, then we would advance construct the Franklin Road project, so we can, again, get that all done at one time and minimize the impact on properties. So that concludes my presentation. A lot of information there.
Hey, just before Mr. Fakasi jumps in, so you use the term roundabout frequently, and doing the Evergreen Road construction of truck nation in the neighborhood about roundabouts, and you use it frequently about this. I'm in favor of roundabouts, but have you? This is if you know you do it not. Has the acceptance of the roundabout been favorable? From your knowledge?
Right. For the most part, I hear overall, I would say favorable. From a traffic engineering standpoint, it is definitely favorable. I definitely think that people are still getting used to it, and the times that I can really see it are when people are coming to this site that maybe don't come all the time. People that drive it every day, I think, have got it. It's the people that come once every 3 months or 4 months to pay their water bill or to pay their taxes twice a year. Those are people that maybe are only driving through it a handful of times a year. And that's kind of where I can always tell when I'm driving them. That's when I'm most likely to run into people that still seem like they're trying to figure it out. I am encouraged that I see vehicles for student drivers many times through these roundabouts. So I think for the kids, the young people, and I know that they are less experienced drivers, but they are gonna grow up driving these roundabouts, and they're not gonna have any trepidation whatsoever about navigating them. So I'm really encouraged by what we're seeing. We do know the safety improvements to reduce fatalities across the state, and is the biggest push and the biggest movement with these roundabouts, that it saves lives.
Mr.
Just
Truss.
follow the signs, everything will be fine.
Right. You're right.
You ready, Lee?
I'm ready then.
Lee, something has to be done, and I don't know, but it's sure worth putting together getting you some help, or somebody some help, to do these follow-throughs and inspections of jobs that we're doing. And, John Grace, we had so many calls from those people there, because he put down lousy topsoil. I went and looked at it, a lot of council did too, they were called down there. It had stones in it, and they put in supposedly sod, and they put in seed, and that was all gone. And I think that somebody, when they do the checklist, and meet with the residents and meet with the contractor, and then how they are qualified to do other projects in the city should be weighed. And if they don't take care of their checklist, they should be given 1 year off or 2 year off, as they come back when you start doing the jobs right. And Cranbrook, they were right down nasty to the residents there. We had a pile of calls from Cranbrook. I know it was a tough job. I know they had to go to the busing center, drop their cars off, and some walked and whatever. But it was right at 4th of July, and they're having parties, and they blocked all the streets for construction. I think they have to be sensitive to what's going on in the calendar to know what's, take the barricades down for a day or whatever. But there should be more communication. Cambridge, that was the biggest mess that ever happened. The person who did that job, there were barrels out in Catalpa, that was a total mess. I think they brought in another contractor to help finish up that job. And then Northland, that was an $800,000 change order. And then there was a bump in the road besides, and I still see small cracks in the seams. Had a crack, but when they trowel, when they saw cut, and they catch either a stone or something, takes out a little chip, then they come back and they put a little cement in it, so you don't see it. You don't really see it until that pops. And 2 years down, you'll know about it because there'll be an asphalt patch there. And then like Evergreen Road, the day we had the big rainstorm, they were over here blowing out the seams and putting in the tar. And there's no way that that tar could adhere to what they were doing. That stuff will not stay there. And what it'll get is that, 2 years from now, 3 years, you get that thump, that everybody knows 275, wherever you go, we'll have that happening on Evergreen Road. But I don't know why somebody never caught it, said, yes, I talked to them, I checked it out, never heard nothing back. LTU, that job on the service drive by LTU, that thing lasted so long, they put up barrels in the wrong lanes, and it was causing problems for traffic, the LTU, the students. And it was that was all kinds of calls on that. And I guess what it really comes down to is we need to see that whatever we ask them to do a good job is done. The checklist should be really gone over really strong, and they put up a double bond, whatever it takes. But somebody's gonna have to keep on top of it. When you see roads falling apart like today, we have a lack of contractors. So the faster they get through, the more money they make, and then they take some of the crew and put them into the next job, and then they rush through that one to get to the next one, and they move their equipment and they move it back, and it's a game they're playing, and we'll see the finished product 3 and 4 years from now. And I guess it all comes down to making sure the job is done right. And I guess I'm asking, how are the people who in these jobs qualified to do another job in the city?
Well, all of these contracts, I mean, something like restoration and housekeeping in a neighborhood are definitely issues. And those are things that we talked to that contractor about in particular from Cambridge Village. And they were better on the Section 35 project that they started on. Now this year, I mean, they only did one street last year, so this year is really gonna be the majority of the work. And they know that we are watching. And as far as quality of work, I am confident we are getting quality construction projects. We have full-time inspection on all of these projects. And when you reference that point about the joint sealant going down, I don't know if you had missed a step or because they blew it out first, but those joints where you had concerns were checked, by hand with a knife to make sure that it was sticking. I mean, if it's really wet when it goes down and it's not adhering, you know that immediately because you could just go and pull it right out. So we are confident that that was installed and is adhering into that joint. Restoration for me is the most challenging part of these projects, these multi-million-dollar projects, all this money in water mains and road pavement. And every one of these 2015 projects is still open this year because we have restoration. And I still have the South Evergreen project between 8 and 9 Mile still open because we have not signed off on the restoration on that project. Hopefully by the spring, they're gonna come in one more time and do it again because we've not been happy. The contractors know that we are gonna be on top of this, and hopefully now they are really hiring landscape contractors, landscape subs, because most of them do not do the work themselves, that are quality, because we're not going to accept the same standard of what's on the side of a highway somewhere. This is in front of people's homes and businesses. We do predominantly use seed, and in Section 31, that was all, topsoil and seed and mulch. The only place we really propose sod are in areas that, like Evergreen, where we know we've got irrigation, because otherwise we actually have better success with seed and mulch as opposed to sod in areas where there's not irrigation. So, and then, plus the cost savings. For me, I'd spend the extra money to take away the headache, but sod dies just as easily, if not more quickly, if it's not taken care of than seed. Seed's a little more resilient. So I definitely hear your concerns. We do our very best to communicate with the adjacent property owners. And LTU, we had all the right contacts there. So I think part of that was that they were hoping that our construction was going to be complete before the students came back to school, and it was not. So then, the students were kind of restricted to specific driveways, and maybe that wasn't communicated to all their students. We also ran into their contractors due to their construction on site a little bit that we were trying to coordinate with. So we always, keep access open to commercial properties, but if they have 2 driveways, most of the time they're probably only gonna have one, and then the other at any point during construction. But yeah, it's painful. In the beginning, there's not a lot of complaints and they know it's coming, but towards the end, people's patience, I just think it's trying, and they are looking for the project to be done and get.
I'm not criticizing the job you're doing. I'm criticizing the fact that I don't think we have enough people aboard to check all the projects that we have going, so that you catch the little things that cost us money down the road. Give you another example, I have pictures of it. We had 18-wheelers out here in the wintertime when it was thawing, and they'd taken up the asphalt. Well, first of all, they'd taken up the snow in 18-wheelers and hauling the snow away. Then they came back and they tore up the asphalt. And the answer to the engineer was, well, it's a 9-inch all-purpose roadway out there and it can handle the 18-wheeler. But what happens when they get off of Evergreen Road when it's not a 9-inch to get to the service driver wherever they're driving, all this heavy stuff? And that's what really bothers me. Well, the reason is because he wanted to start early to get the job done, to get the end, or get to the next job, and get his bonus, whatever it is. But there's no way that these 18-wheelers should have been picking up the snow and then the asphalt and taking those 18-wheelers on our service drives and on our other streets. That's exactly what happened when they did the expressway. They were coming off the expressway and using our service drives by Federal Mogul, and that's why that service drive is as bad as it was to get redone. So here we have Dan coming down here and doing a job in the expressway. He takes his big 18-wheelers and comes on our service drives to get to wherever he's going, and he walks away. He's not asked, hey, you know what, this is a service drive, and you're bringing that service drive up to snuff because you're using it as a construction road. There's a difference between a service drive and a construction road. And that pays heck, especially when the road is asphalt. And I guess, I don't know, I guess I'd like to see us, with all the money we're spending, that we maybe can save some more money. You know, it costs $1 million a mile. Every $1 million I save, I get another mile done. The last thing I'd like to say is that we have cement and we have asphalt, and there's something that Mike Kowalski took me into I think to other people, into Beverly Hills when they were doing, or Birmingham, when they were putting down this surface, and it may buy 5 years, but when you're talking about all these projects going down the way, if some of these roads that are really bad, we don't have the money for doing it, maybe we could do some other than concrete and asphalt to at least make our residents be driving on a surface that doesn't get their ball joints and tie rods healthy to the mechanics. And so, but I really am concerned about I don't even see them on 10 Mile Road. When they put in 10 Mile Road, ever coming down and doing any maintenance on it, you know, sealing the cracks or the cuts, you know, so water gets down and naturally it pops. I've been on most of the subdivisions this year already, and my gosh, today I followed on Virginia a street cleaner, and he's sweeping up gravel. He's not sweeping up the leaves from last year. I mean, he's got gravel, and he's twisting. The gravel's going into the center of the road. I think they have another one that comes and takes that as well. But I couldn't imagine a pile of gravel that's sitting, you know, in the middle of the road. And it's, you know, you swerve to get out of that, but then you're in that center piece with all the potholes in it where the asphalt came out. And you ask a resident to drive down the street in front of his house, and it doesn't do anything for us as far as curb appeal or taking care of our roads. I know you know, these thaws and what's happening in Michigan just kills you, but some way, you know, we've got to try to use something besides asphalt and concrete and buy ourselves some more time. If we just grade the road, meaning A, B, C, or whatever, and wait till it becomes a gravel road, then the cost then it needs full reconstruction as opposed to just the surface patch. And that's just my comments, and I'm not in any way criticizing the job you're doing, but I just am really concerned about spending $36 million and having to go back 2 years later, a year later, and on the service drive, it was what, before the project was even completed, it was $800 million or $800,000 change order, you know, because they only did 6 borings, you know, do 12. 14 borings, whatever it was.
Twice the number required.
Yeah, but maybe it requires more, Fred. And
I don't
I don't know what the answer
Right.
is. I just see what's happening with the roads here, and I've never seen, you know, the center of our roads mostly in our nice subdivisions, all just going. And I don't know, there's not gonna be enough asphalt in the world to fill these cracks. Go ahead.
Ms. Morris?
Yes. Lee, how do you go about making a decision when you switch material? Like for LTU, it was initially concrete, but then with the renovation, you put down asphalt. So how do you decide to switch your material?
It usually comes down to just what's gonna be the most economic fix. And when Mr. Fracassi was just talking about like different type of treatments on the roads, when we have concrete, you have a lot less options with what you can do. You can, if the whole road's not blown out, spot repairs, that's an easy thing to do. Other than that, you really can just, you could cap it with asphalt, which is what a lot of the service drives are. And we're able to do that more easily on a road like the service drive that has a lot of shoulders and not so many curves. In neighborhoods, it's a little harder to do that and to get any good life out of it, because you can't raise the whole elevation of the road or people start having drainage problems, with their driveway approaches and on their private properties. So most of the time with the concrete roads, we're doing either spot repairs or total reconstruction. That total reconstruction can be in either concrete or asphalt. I think I tend to lean toward asphalt just because I feel like I've got more options when it comes time for repairs. Some of the things that maybe Mr. Fracassi was speaking about is like a cape seal. It's really just a very an inexpensive surface treatment that you can do to an asphalt road, only asphalt, but you have to do it at the right time, and we've used it in areas of Southfield where I feel like we've got great results because we know we've got good drainage underneath, sandy soils. We've used it in other parts of town that we don't have good subsurface drainage because it was just an old gravel road that was capped with asphalt, and it's in a clay soils type area. So those areas where we've done it, not so successful. When we did it in those areas, that was before our road bond passed, we were trying to do something to that road that was gonna get a better driving surface. It's certainly improved in those areas from where it was, but it's, people don't always understand the difference between giving them a new asphalt street or just doing the surface treatment that may still have a pothole blowout next year somewhere. So it's going to be a mix of fixes. Some of the areas that I really want to move into in coming years is to make sure that we're starting to hit some of our asphalt roads on the west side of town that we had reconstructed when we did the new sewers on those streets. So they were reconstructed but in asphalt. So when we reconstruct those roads, they are constructed with a sub base to it and then the asphalt cap. So really, once you have that good stone sub base underneath these roads, oftentimes that stays in place and we can just mill off, maybe not all the asphalt if the road's not in bad shape, maybe just an inch and put a new cap on it. We can do that pretty cheaply. And the surface treatments are even less expensive because you're not milling anything off. Most of these roads that we have programmed for this year and for last year that are asphalt roads, we've taken the existing asphalt and pulverized it so it turns it almost into dirt again, but it still is very compactable. So then we roll that and put a new asphalt cap on. And that is, when you have good sub-base underneath, that's almost as good as fully reconstructing the road, but saves you a lot of dollars. What they did across the street on that vacant lot was pulverize that lot. The next step they didn't do, which I'm gonna be on Dan's excavating about, in that staging yard they used, is to roll it afterwards. Right now, it almost looks like a field that someone's ready to plant some corn in. It's like, that is not topsoil, that is pulverized asphalt material over there. With concrete, you don't do that with concrete without using diamond grinders, and it gets very expensive and it's just typically not done, it's not cost effective. So, yeah, we're always trying to see what's gonna be the best fix. What we are trying to move away from is just always doing the worst roads first, because you want to try and grab some of those other roads when they just start going on a scale of 1 to 10, when they start falling from a 10, which is a brand new road, like down to a 7 or a 6, you can come in and do a cheap fix on that road, bring it back up to a 9, and get a lot more years out of it without having to worry about it. certainly we can't do nothing with the roads that are down in the 1 and 2 range, and we've got a lot of them still. We're playing catch up. And I feel like we've been aggressive in these first years of our road bond project so that we can try and hit as many neighborhoods as possible. And we are trying to hit those worst streets where we know we have water main needs so that we can more strategically improve the whole neighborhood. But I mean, we've got a lot to do, and I get a lot of calls, especially this time of year, about road conditions. And there are still a lot of bad local roads out there. We're gonna get to them. It's gonna take time. This is a 10-year program that we're trying to put together with these road bond dollars. And that sounds like forever when you've got a bad condition road in front of your house, but we can't do it all at one time. And we're trying to spend it as smartly as we can so that our overall road network is improved significantly at the end of this 10 years.
Any other questions? I have a couple. On the road program that you showed, did any of them include bike paths where there are no sidewalks? Or, I mean, you don't have to go through the whole
Yeah, I'm
slideshow
just
again.
trying to look at the map so I can refresh my memory here.
Because we're trying to make this a walkable community. And if we're in there fixing roads, maybe where it makes sense to put some bike paths in.
Well, for this year, it's really just on Bell Road because we have that, it's a wider path, it's not just a 5-foot sidewalk, that's gonna be an 8-foot concrete path, so that will be for bicyclists and for pedestrians. So in the 2017 projects for Evergreen Road, both of those Evergreen Road projects, the 9 Mile to Northwestern and the 11 to 13, they do have sidewalks on those roads, but for the 12 to 13, that just has shoulders, and we are keeping those shoulders. What we're going to do is widen those shoulders just another foot or 2 feet beyond what's required to build it per federal standards, and then stripe it as a bike lane. So you'll have the regular 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk that's existing. It goes that full mile, so we don't need improvements there. So, but we're gonna do the on-street bike lanes. It's just a little bit of extra cost, and it's just showing some connectivity since we've got our 10-foot wide multi-use path here, and we're trying to include that in corridors that have been identified in the city's non-motorized plan as we move forward.
Okay, if we're gonna do on-street bike lanes, then I think we need to have a real good communications program so that people know to watch out for bicyclists that are on the roadway.
I mean, I think that on projects in this whole metro area, you're seeing it a little more here and a little more there. And some of them, I don't necessarily see a whole ton of bikes on, but others I do. I've definitely been on Evergreen Road coming to and from work before where I'm sharing a lane of traffic with a bicycle,
Yeah.
which, you know, and I guess that's where they're really supposed to be, but in rush hour traffic, you know, it'll be nice for them to have a designated, you know, striped location to be. The other piece that was from this year's, well, it was from last year's project for that southbound service drive. It hasn't been constructed yet. There's still a little more work to do on that project, but that is also gonna have like an on-street, we call that on-street bike lane, where we just are doing an extra wide shoulder and some paint and signage so that it will be identified as a bike lane, which will be nice there because for most of that stretch, we do not have sidewalks. So it's really there for cyclists, but you know, if you have pedestrians, at least they have like an extra wide shoulder that they could walk on if they needed to, better than walking in the ditch.
Yeah, Mr. Morris asked a question about how do you make a decision between concrete and asphalt. Personally, I think asphalt is a safety issue, especially if you're driving at night in the rain. It just, your light, the headlights on your car are just swallowed up by the blackness, and you just can't, you can easily overdrive your headlights. And of course, you can't slow down to 40 miles an hour on a highway because your car will be shorter in the back. But with concrete roads, it reflects whatever light because it's so light itself. So and then when the lane markings start to fade, and you have the no moon out, and it's inclement weather, I think it's a safety factor. So the less cost of putting in the road initially, I think creates a safety factor, or safety issue. The other comment that I want to make is on Greenview, where it was Cape Sealed, I was real leery, because when it first went down, I thought, it looks like they took a tar truck down and just drove down and sprayed tar over the road. But that has held up remarkably well.
That's exactly where I'm talking about.
Yes.
That, that Section 35 Phase 2 that was supposed to
Yes.
happen this year, Greenview was one of those streets.
Yeah.
And when we drove it last fall, I was like, wow, this Cape Seal down here, and they do have sandy soils down that area. I'm like, is lasting very,
Yeah.
I mean, it's doing great. I mean, the roads look good for just having that inexpensive surface treatment. And so I'm gonna put off those projects as long as I can make Larry wait on the water main a little bit, and we don't, continue to have too many water breaks there. I just wanna maximize the life of that inexpensive fix. And if, I was planning on just pushing it off for 1 year, but if it still looks great next fall.
It does, it really
Then
does.
pushing it off 1 more year. So, we definitely, before we program, we have the ideas in our heads about where we want to go, but we do modify that a little bit depending on what we're seeing out in the field, and we'll continue to evaluate on a project-by-project basis. So.
Okay. And the last point is, I got a call from a resident that made a strong appeal for the 9 Mile project to put a bike path or a walking path between Levy School and McAllister, because with the schools being closed next year, his contention is there are going to be a lot more kids in the neighborhood walking to school, because now they go to Brace Litterly, but they'll be going to the middle school, and it's less than a mile, so they'll be walking to school. And he doesn't want to walk into the road, and neither do I. So take a look at that piece of that section between Levy School and McAllister to see if there can be a walking path put in there.
We're a little tight on some right-of-way in front of those residential properties, but let us take a look at it,
Yeah.
and if it's, I can bring that back to council, and with a change order or something if we
Yeah.
want
And
to try and do that.
The land is kind of elevated too, so it's and there are some mature trees longer, so it's not going to be
Probably
easy.
part of the reason.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the first time. We're
Yeah.
tackling Bell Road, and there's
Yeah.
hardly a walk more challenging than that one, so.
Yeah, it's where the old dog kennel was.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's hello.
yeah,
Your friend.
My friend.
yeah. All right, any other questions? Ms. Seymour?
Yeah, can we do something about the lane stripes? Because a lot of them are wearing down and the lighting is bad at night and,
So with lane striping, it really only lasts for about 1 year. And we run out of money every year. So July 1 is really when they will start getting out there, because I don't know if we have any money left over from last year's striping budget. So, we get out and stripe the entire city, all the major roads and some of the other roads that seem more secondary that we still have striping on, and we do it every year. And it's amazing to me when I got into this industry to learn that really only lasts for a year, and then we're out there doing it again. But yeah, this is a hard time of year right now.
I know it is, but the busy streets where you have a lot of traffic and not the neighborhood so much, you don't see that as much, but some of the streets where you have heavy traffic, people are not paying attention to the lanes, in some cases you can't see them at all at night. Just check those out and see what we can do.
Yeah, I'll talk to our traffic engineer. Sometimes what we'll do
Or I'll
is
start calling you in. I mean, not you, but I'll start calling you in. I'm on this street, it's really bad.
I get lots of those calls. But, Yeah, I mean, if there's a specific location that you're worried about, and there could be some areas that maybe don't have great lighting, or just depending on the road configurations, so.
That, they almost get invisible.
Mhm.
And at night especially, people are, you know, if you have your lights on, those white things stand out. Those-
Right.
But if they're really bad, people are just not, they're not paying attention.
Yeah,
Okay.
even- Yeah, just the soonest even that we would do that would probably be in late April. We need to make sure that all the frost is gone. So we usually kind of follow what the county has frost laws, so when those frost laws come off is when we feel like we can kickstart
That's
those.
fine.
Okay, do the best you can. All right, we gotta move along.
Thank you.
All right? Next item, thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
Next item is the community block grant.
Mr. President, Rick Lampy will be providing council with this PowerPoint presentation. We received word from HUD that our annual allocation is up slightly over last year's allocation, $451,118. We're requesting to schedule a public hearing for Monday, April 25th. We're permitted to use 20% of our funds for admin. We're proposing to use a full 20% for administrative costs, including our fair housing requirement, amount of $90,223. And then the maximum amount of our allocation that we can use for public service activities is 15% for $67,677. And Mr. Lampy will present the PowerPoint. The requirement is that we're adopting our annual action plan, which states how much we're going to spend. And every 5 years, we do a 5-year plan. Mr. Lampy has been working with Oakland County in the development of the 5-year plan as part of a regional effort.
Okay?
Good evening, council. I'll try to make this a little shorter than the last presentation.
I'm sure you're going to, because I'm gonna see to it. There's something to be said for easels.
Charts. Anyhow, this year we're supposed to get $451,000 in block grant money. And I wanted to show you some slides. It's just some of the stuff we do with the block grant program. It's called the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, what you may have heard it as over the years. And partly what we do is we have a SHIP program, which is our Southfield Home Improvement Program. We provide financial assistance to lower income homeowners to rehabilitate their house. This comes in the form of deferred loans. They pay it back when the property is sold. So roofs are a biggie right now. And if you look at the entire housing stock in Southfield, it's getting old. It needs its second, third, fourth roofs, and likewise with the furnaces. So we do that. Secondly, we work with a program called Rebuilding Together. As a sub-recipient, they do volunteer work for us. We leverage our money out that way. They do homeowner projects, community projects. And again, we get volunteer groups. We pay for the materials. They fix up houses, do building ramps, yard work, stuff like that. Good leverage on our money. Here's another project with Rebuilding Together where we do a community project. Last year, Eaton Corporation worked at the Beachwoods Arena site, planting trees, painting tables, doing some interior painting. A good leverage of our resources again. They're happy to do it. This year we're going to be working over at Barvick Park at 9 Mile and Evergreen, recruiting the trails. Our chore program, we hire volunteers to do minor home repair, light maintenance for the senior homeowners in the city. Basically, we do about 155 a year. Yard work, snow work, painting, electrical, plumbing work, stuff like that. Our code enforcement program has a group of, we hire some part-time people, and they take care of blighting situations and little code violations. There's some illegal dumping, they take care of it. It's kind of the emergency blight patrol that we have. We have the TOSS program, Transportation for Southfield Seniors. We fund a portion of that. It helps seniors get around, also the disabled residents get around. And then sometimes we do capital projects, like in this case, and this year we're just wrapping up Over at the Berg site, we're putting in new heating, air conditioning in there. You can see there's a new air conditioning unit. Right now, we're bidding out a comfort station at the senior gardens. That's being bid out right now. A couple years ago, we did the circular sidewalk in front of City Hall. So we do that occasionally, a small project. And it kind of depends on how much money we have left at the end of the year. Here's your impact with the block grant program for 1 year. Your SHIP program might fix up 8 houses, and that helps a homeowner, but it helps a neighborhood also. Rebuilding Together, on their one-day event, they'll work on 8 to 10 houses. The CHORE program works on 155 houses. Code enforcement maybe eliminates 100 blighting situations. The TOSS program provides 1,500 rides. Southfield Youth Assistance provides scholarship to 140 youth. South Oakland Shelter assists 33 residents in emergency relief fund through Human Services. Provides assistance to 57 residents who do some fair housing work. They investigate 21 cases a year. We also work with Oakland County. They have a home program. That home program is like our SHIP program. They provide assistance to our residents. And we get from them 10 to 15 houses a year. So that's kind of the impact of this $400,000 grant. And if you look at, here's our budget over the years. We've funded the same types of programs forever. We spend the money each year. We have a few projects. Here's the comfort station, the Berg HVAC. A little bit of leftover money that should be spent by the end of the year as we're bidding those projects out. Well, this is an address of where a slide of where we do the work. Our rehab program, they do it all over the city. It really is citywide types of improvements. And here's, you can see Rebuilding Together, the locations of where we did houses last year. We're still looking at where we're working this year, but it is citywide. The CHORE program, little dots on there, 157 of them, citywide again. That list stays pretty much the same. What happens is, if someone comes off the list, we have a few more people on it. But basically, that's our coverage for that program. The housing rehab program, again, citywide, all over. This is what we're proposing this year, pretty much to try to continue the same level of services we had the last few years. Funding the SHIP program, the CHORE Rebuilding Together program, those are our housing programs. Our public service programs, basically to the same amount. Code enforcement and admin and fair housing, pretty close to the same amount. And I guess what we're asking tonight is for you to set up a public hearing for April 24th. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Mr. Percassi?
You know, on this balance sheet, that's on page, there's no number on it. Second, yeah, page 2, what I have, we have the approved amounts for 14 to 15, 15 to 16, 16 to 17. But what was it, could you tell me, like say CHORE, what was the actual amount that was spent?
$150,000.
So in other words, if you budgeted 150, it was 150 you spent?
Correct.
Is that the same for all the other items down the list?
Correct. Our goal is to spend it in the year that it's budgeted.
All of the 2014-15 projects are closed out, correct?
Except for
2014,
the capital projects are the
Except for our
only,
capital, and that
Yeah.
includes the Berg site.
the Berg site and then the senior garden site.
And the majority, a good number of the 15-16 projects are closed out. Some
Right.
of those are still in work.
Yeah. And our program year ends July 1st, so the intent is to make their money run to July 1st if we can.
Is the Berg site on here?
Pardon?
Is the Berg site on here?
This is the Berg site.
Is the
Yeah.
Berg site on here?
It's not
Under
on this
88.
year's,
Under, 88, okay.
Yeah, that was,
2 years ago.
There's no dollar. There's no dollar amount.
No, but we're just following the projects over a 4-year budget period, and so it will be completed.
Oh.
56,000.
We may, if we have extra money from that site, we may request that council approve money for brick pavers in front of some of the historic sites there at the burg.
Just, go ahead. Dan.
Excuse me, I have a question with respect to code enforcement. 14 to 15, you had 56,000, and you dropped down to 30,000. Why was this drop in code enforcement?
I don't know, I wasn't here.
You got the problems fixed.
Well, you got to fix that problem. Okay, that's why I was curious, you know, code enforcement is, I see. Well,
Yeah, they changed, you know, and then,
Okay, all right, well, that's when you allocate to some of the calls.
right.
It's all spent, everything.
Absolutely.
And the code money, some of it's used for equipment breaks and different things. Then we charge labor on it's a forced accounting system. But we pretty much close that out every year.
Okay, no problem. I'm assuming the money went to another good cause.
Roughly 20% of the city and the areas sits in a eligible census tract, and there is an allocation that when work's done in a certain area, we try to spend it. Allows us to leave the general fund with some dollars.
Ms. Seymour?
Yeah, I know Haven has come to us in the past years, we've always asked for $5,000. There was an article recently about they're opening their new shelter in Pontiac, a beautiful place that they've managed to fund and build. I'd like to see us improve that. I think $750 makes us look awfully, I don't know, I mean, it's a problem that exists everywhere, we're not immune to it. I'd like to see at least be double, just.
I think we'd like to see an increase as well, but we're working up against the 15% cap. A few years ago, we had stopped funding both the shelters. The reason why an additional amount was put in is on a HUD monitoring visit. You know, one of the questions from HUD's field staff was, what are you doing regarding the homeless population? Well, our first response is we're part of the county's activities and what they're doing with homeless. In my cover letter, I speak to the one grant program, which we don't see that our allocation is not large enough to stand on our own. So we work with the county on that. And that's dealing with your homeless population. But the 20,000 that goes in our human services, pretty much that is helped to prevent. Those funds are used to prevent homelessness. That when someone's going through an eviction process, you know, we try to use that money to leverage with other agencies to stop homeless. So that was our first response. And then after discussion with HUD, you know, we wanted to have some participation with Haven and SOS, who are the other two large homeless prevention groups in our region.
Didn't they get a grant for over $1 million?
Pardon?
Didn't Haven get a grant for over $1 million?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that for their shelter though? Isn't that what they use it for?
Spent $5 million building a shelter.
Yeah.
And there's another piece of this. Even in our home program, which 3 years ago we started, we were receiving 140. We're now receiving 190,000 in home. 10% of our home allocation is going to qualified SHODOs, community development organizations. Haven, SOS, they're typically SHODO or organizations that have access to that money. So that's another way that dollars that are earmarked for Southfield go in to work with those types of agencies. You know, so there's another 19,000 going in to help shelter, and that's happening from every community throughout Oakland County.
Okay, Mayor?
I don't know, I'm out of order, but, you know, I've advocated for more money for chores because we have so many older people that are having trouble maintaining their yards. And we want them to stay in their homes, but again, we're working on curb appeal in neighborhoods. When you look at the allotment for chore, I mean, my hope was that we would put more money into chore this year. And in meeting with Denise, she says currently she has 160 clients, and they're only getting $500 a year. Well, $500 is not a lot if you need a furnace repair or they're the chore recipient is just using it for grass and snow removal. So that's why we're gonna look at doing some, try to step up some volunteer things. You know, one of the programs I wanna start in the fall is the big rake to supplement chore by getting volunteers to rake yards that are identified as qualified for that kind of assistance. Our Honor Society students need credits for community service. We've used them in the past, so we're looking at other ways to enhance chore, but I would love to have more money for chore personally. You know, once you're paying the administrative costs of running the program, you're left actually with about $75,000 to go for 160 people, and I think the need is greater than 160 people.
Yeah, I have a concern about chore program too. Every time I hear the chore program, it's the same 160 people. That year after year after year, we do the same thing. Well, we have more than 160 people that need some assistance. Why are we guaranteeing them longevity rather than every year we start all over again, first come, first serve?
Well, I think what you have is a program that just every year you add to that list and people come up. So it changes a little bit, but basically it's the same 150 people, 155 people.
We currently have a 3/4 time employee who's administering the program. There has been discussions about looking to identify a different method for delivering the program, and we're certainly going to continue to investigate that. If we could reduce our cost, our staffing costs of delivering the program by 50%, we could put another 35,000, 3750 into the program. And 2 years ago, when HUD was in on a monitoring visit, you know, if you've ever been through one of these monitoring visits, you're very sheepish in the type of questions you ask the people doing the visit. You know, they usually can find enough without you offering things. One of the questions specifically put to HUD was, do you have an issue with what we're spending to deliver these services? And the answer was no, because they liked the volume results. My test on it was, if I read of any organization spending 50% of the cost of the grant to deliver the service, we would read the paper and set it down with disgust. And that's where I think we need to find a more cost-effective way of delivering the service. And the last couple of years, we've been cleaning up some accounting issues with this program. We had, for years, we were counting on program income coming in that wasn't coming in. And we stopped that about 3 years ago, but we cleaned up those issues with HUD. This is one of the next issues on our radar screen. Can we find some agency to deliver that service and fulfill the HUD requirements in a more cost-effective fashion?
Well, I'm just concerned about some person having to wait till somebody falls off the list in order to get kind of...
And that's not how the program's supposed to be worked, because one of the things HUD did go back and check with the regs to look at is we use a lot of our money for grass cutting and snow. But most of this money is supposed to be used for minor electrical, plumbing, the broken window, a door that needs to be replaced.
One-time things.
One-time things. And there was a few days during that monitoring visit, but HUD came back and they did not have a problem with this, using it for grass cutting and landscaping and that, because I was expecting 2 areas to get our wrist slapped on: admin and the grass cutting and that. When you look at the SHIP or the HUD home improvement guidelines and that, they're not real wild on what we would call curb appeal. They want to focus their money more on, shingles, some more substantial issues. But again, during the monitoring visit, they didn't have a problem with it, so it's one of these that I'm not sure I want to kick that dog too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, with limited amount of money, it's a real concern.
Yeah.
Mr. Mandelbaum?
With the code enforcement, if we are doing emergency anti-blight issues, was that, do we charge the owners of the properties for that service?
No, I don't believe we do.
We don't get that money back as,
No, that's ship. We get the money back from the
On
ship.
on the ship, when we put,
for code
Yeah, but
enforcement?
but for code, we
Oh.
don't.
Well, if it's a blight and it's ticketed,
If it's, yeah, but that money's
Right.
not coming back to this program. A lot of this is work and we're underwriting staff and equipment needs. You know, for example, CDBG bought a couple lawnmowers so that they would have it, so we didn't have to use general fund dollars to buy that equipment. I'm shocked every year, but we go through a lot of rakes, gloves, and, you know, we're out there doing a lot of work. We could do a breakdown between now and the 25th, but a good amount of the money's going for equipment. There's actually in the underground a storage shed, a fenced-in area where code keeps their lawnmowers and things like that. And a lot of that stuff is bought with CDBG funds.
Some
And
of
then
it
we
is-
do force accounting for staff that, but I don't think we're always getting that.
well, no, but a lot of times too, if they've given the appropriate notice, they can write it as a single lot special assessment. So you see those in April when we have the rather large, you'll see a lot of code enforcement, and that's billing for,
Right.
you know, these kind of services to people that aren't,
And fire and false alarms.
and false alarms, right?
I don't believe that money's coming back to this program.
It probably doesn't come back to the program, but at least there's some mechanism for the property to pay for the service.
and then just working on some of the comments about the more money for the chore program. When I was on the Total Living Commission, there was a program that we looked at that was similar to chore, that we looked at possibly implementing. I know it got shot down back then, but maybe it's something we can bring back. I can't remember the name of it, but it's they do it in other cities, and you pay a small fee and they create marketing materials and everything, and they have volunteers that come in that do small home renovations, you know, to fix a leaky faucet or things like that, that may be able to help get any more money from shore.
I'd like to have that information.
We could name the services.
Yeah, neighborhood services.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe by looking at your old minutes, Louise can go back through the old minutes and find out what the
I
name
have the
is.
packet at home. I
Oh,
just
okay.
can't remember off the top of my head what
Oh,
it was
okay.
called.
Give it to Councilman Morris.
Okay.
Mr. Cruz? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Anyone else have a question? So you want us to have a public hearing on the 24th of April?
Correct.
Okay.
25th.
25th?
Turn the lights out, please.
Yeah, just a second, I get it.
Do you need to get a little 10 to set it, or is it
If
going
I
to
could get
21st?
just a consensus to allow us to advertise, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
that was April 25th. That-
Right, but then you'll put it on as a consent item
Yeah.
to set it?
Oh, to just, consent item to schedule it.
Right, but I think maybe you need this amount of time to publish,
We
right?
need 30 days.
We'll have to get to the clerk's office, and there's 10 to 15 days before the public hearing has to be noticed.
So would the 21st work if you had it on the consent agenda for the 21st? Would that give you enough time for the
Consent,
notice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it as a consent? Right. just put it in there.
Okay? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Looks like we're down to our attorney.
Right, I'm doing this also on behalf of the planner, so, and I am asking for Rule 10, so I'll apologize. in
Also
advance. All right. So, just real quickly, because I don't think it needs a lot of explanation at this juncture, there is a catch-all provision in the current industrial zoning district under our zoning ordinance that says, it is pretty much a catch-all. All non-industrial uses are permitted, pretty much all are permitted within that district. We know that recently, we've been doing some uses that, we've been very particular about where council wants to put those. Some of them that come to mind are check cashing, hookah bars, things like that. And then where council has put them, they put them as a special use with a lot of conditions. So the issue has kind of come up on a few occasions now. Could those uses now, because the industrial district is the catch-all, could they just go into industrial district without any of those very particular standards that we've set forth where we allowed them as a special use? And because some of them have kind of actually made their way to a discussion with the planning department, we thought at this point, we really need to study this. We don't want to have a result where there are some uses in the industrial district that really are not, you know, a good mix with industrial. And so because we've had some inquiries, we like to actually get a moratorium. We'll do some studying pretty quickly. We'll get it to the planning commission. Obviously, we'll come back to council with some recommendations. But we do feel that there's a level of concern at this point that we don't, again, because of this catch-all nature, we don't end up with something industrial that council really doesn't envision as an appropriate use. So that's why it's in front of you tonight.
What kind of action you want to?
Well, I would like a Rule 10 and then
Also
an adoption of the moratorium for non-industrial uses industrial.
Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second? It's been moved by Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Brightwell, that we find an immediate need to act on this issue. Is there any question? Are we prepared to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Mr. Chairman, I've moved the attached resolution regarding the moratorium on non-industrial uses.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Cruz, that we adopt the resolution before us on the non-industrial uses in industrial zoning districts. Is there any discussion? I do have one question.
Yes.
And that is, when you read this, that if there's an appeal to the moratorium, it
Yes.
comes before the council as
Yes.
a hearing,
Yes.
and you act as a judge? Is that, I mean, it appears, reading this.
You really do, but I think it's important for these moratoriums, and you'll notice the standard in there for your review is where basically the moratorium is to deprive that property owner of any economic use to his property. So to say that, for example, a person for 6 months, which is what we're recommending here, has no economically viable use of his property, that's a hardship. And so I think it was important, and we've done this historically with all of our moratoriums, put a relief valve in there so that if the person thought that there's nothing else I can use this for while you have this moratorium, at least have the right to come to council and you could accept him from the moratorium. I think that's an appropriate, equitable kind of power that council should have in those situations.
Is that, would his argument be, this customer came to me and wanted to rent my building and was willing to pay me $10,000 a month rent, and that's the only use that I have for this building?
And yet
So-
your moratorium is stopping me
Yeah,
from do this.
from collecting-
Absolutely. Those are the kinds of situations. And again, I can't recollect anybody's ever come and asked council for the exception under the moratorium, but I think it's important to put that remedy in there.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure everyone knows that we may have to wear
Right.
robes one night.
Right.
Are we prepared to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next item on, do you want to use this moment of time to talk about the salt dome?
Just real quick to let council know, a week ago, last Monday, the salt dome at the Public Works Yard, we had a partial collapse. We're moving forward on a emergency replacement, working with finance and Public Works, had a number of people out today on it. In addition to the salt dome partial collapse, the conveyor belt It has not worked in about 3 years, so we're looking at about a $500,000 expenditure to replace that. We may move it forward as an emergency item in the next few weeks. And I think there've been about 4 meetings since this has happened. We've had different architectural and other folks out. I know, I believe Councilman Brightwell has been outside, and he's seen it. We could move as quick as next Monday on this, but I wanted you to be aware that this issue's facing us.
What is it that's failing? I couldn't hear you down there.
The salt dome at the Public Works
Oh, okay,
yard.
okay. The conveyor
It
belt?
is, yeah, it's at a partial collapse.
Okay.
And, every day the roof is caved in a little bit more. It is a concrete structure about 4 feet high, 10 inches thick, and a timber frame with plywood and a shingle roof. And it's literally the corrosiveness of the salt has dried that timber out to such a point that part of it's collapsed.
Okay? So that will be, he'll bring that before, after it goes through the finance committee, he'll bring it back. Okay? Apparently I had the wrong agenda, so we've got a couple more things. An
Yeah.
update
Oh,
on.
you thought that was the end?
Yes.
Oh, sir.
The next item is another item from our attorney.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to update council in terms of the oil and gas situation, the proposed drilling at Word of Faith. I've got a potential resolution I'm just going to kind of pass out. Obviously, the MDEQ thought that in its wisdom that it was appropriate to issue the permit that was issued last Tuesday. The very same day, Jordan Development did file the required 5-day notice that they intended to start operations, which, the commencement of operations would generally be at least starting the clear cutting of the 1.5 acres to allow the site. Obviously, if you counted the 5 days, we were extremely concerned that even as of yesterday, they could have gone in there and started clearing those trees. And those trees, Terry Crode and his staff have estimated are anywhere between 100, 150 years old. So once those trees are down, it's too late. I mean, you can't just say, we'll put them back, yeah. So we did file a complaint on Monday in the Oakland County Circuit Court. In general, we've discussed this concept, we did file. And we asked for an immediate temporary restraining order that was granted on Friday. Those are done what they call ex parte, which means in this case, they didn't even have us in. The judge read the motion, thought that there was this immediate harm that could have been done, and granted a temporary restraining order until Wednesday at 8:30. We are required to show up in court. At that time, both sides will be there, and arguments can be made, and we're asking at that point now for a preliminary injunction. And that injunction would then, again, if the judge were to grant it, that would stay in effect until the judge rules otherwise. So that's important for us. We do know that Jordan Development Company is being represented now by Mike Cox, the former Attorney General. Yeah. They actually filed, it was interesting, about 10:30 last night, Sunday night, we got in an email, an emergency motion to basically, and it was set for today in front of Judge Warren, to remove the case out of Oakland County Circuit, and they wanted a hearing like today. The judge looked at that motion today and said, no, there's no basis
They
for
wanted
that.
to take it with them.
Ingham County, because DEQ is a defendant in this suit. Obviously, from our standpoint, this, at the very heart of it, is a zoning issue. I mean, there's lots of stuff, there's environmental, but at the heart of this is a zoning issue. That is a residential district that does not permit mining operations. On top of that, we have a moratorium. So under our zoning authority, they have no ability, and they have no authorization to go and do what they want to do. So obviously, we are going to strenuously object to moving this case to Ingham County. It belongs in Oakland County, it's a zoning issue, and that's where it should be. And of course, that's what our position will be. So what I was really concerned about, obviously, is we needed to file that complaint and that civil action prior to having a formal discussion here with council and a vote. And so what I've done is put a resolution in front of you for two things. One is to ratify, so that the council approves us filing that motion on the complaint and the motions on Friday. And secondly, this case is gonna require a skilled litigator, and I haven't litigated in 30 years, 28, 30 years. So I think, in my opinion, the city will be best be served to have a litigator on the team, so that when these arguments get made and we're gonna be doing, testimony and hearings, that we have that skill set. So I've asked, we have a law firm that we use for our defense cases through the Risk Authority, the MMRMA. And the Risk Authority, really works with these law firms and gets those hourly rates down. And so I contacted Cummings McClory, who does a lot of our cases, and we talked about, they have an expertise, obviously, in this, in particular regulatory issues with the state. They're holding their rates at no more than 150, and that would be for, the top partner that would be working with us. That's Ron Atcho. Some of his people may be a little less if he uses, but primarily it would be Ron Atcho. And again, it's my opinion that we really need to bring in somebody that has those qualifications to work with us. And again, it's going to be very difficult to ascertain what an appropriate budget is. I think a lot of this, in the next 2-3 months, we're going to know a lot, because we're moving on these injunction tracks, which usually get decided more quickly than the case is not going to languish, 3 years, like, say, an auto negligence case. So I just kind of thought, initially, we'll come in with a $50,000 budget. I don't know if that's going to be too much, too little, but part of it is that, they've looked at and have an environmental expert, a man named Chris Grobel, who helped a lot in putting the complaint together. He used to work for the DEQ, so he knows this stuff like the back of his hand. He's been a tremendous asset in terms of, if you get a chance and you look at the affidavit that was filed with the complaint, and he signed the affidavit. I mean, he really knows his stuff. So again, that'll be in that budget that we're setting, because he will be paid by the attorney, the law firm. So that's my initial take. I think that, again, I think we're doing the right things. I think we've moved in the right directions. I think we were timely. But I do think we need to bring them in, and I think we need that budget. So if the council were so inclined, I think a Rule 10 to, set us right, that the council has authorized everything we're doing.
I just got a quick question, Sue.
Sure.
In the resolution, it states that we are taking civil action against Jordan, Word of Faith, and MDEQ.
We have.
Well, are they expected to be at the hearing?
They will be.
MDEQ?
Sure. The AG's already weighed in. Now, the AG may well try to get out of Oakland County Circuit. So that piece could end up in Ingham. So that'll be something that they may advance. But again, the strategy is, because again, there is enough arguments, legitimate arguments, that the permit really shouldn't have been issued. That DEQ did not really look and take into consideration all of the information. And again, read the affidavit of Chris Grobel, because he really did go through it as to where some of the missteps were.
No, I read it.
Okay,
It was good.
so
But you could
absolutely.
have 2 hearings.
It's possible.
One in Oakland.
It's possible.
Right.
And also, we've got the appeal going. There is an appeal process in the MDEQ permit. So that can go on a separate track. We can appeal that permit being issued. And it's not even part. So again, we're going to work out a lot of these issues, where it's going to be, but rest assured that this zoning case needs to stay in Oakland Circuit. And that's certainly going to be our argument and our advancement.
Mr. Picasso.
So, I mentioned this at the site plan committee. I recall when the Franciscans were selling that place, the city tried to protect what was going to be done with it because of its historical value. And I thought that council at that time passed something that made it historical. And the Franciscans fought it because they said that they wanted to be another church. And they ended up taking, I don't know what the word is, they took all the artifacts out of it. And plus the religious things, which desanctified, whatever the terminology is, that, which then made the council really concerned that they're putting it on the open market, not for a church. But I'm just wondering if we also, I've got to go back and look and see.
Well, just on
If
that.
Barris would have pulled that deal.
Right, we actually pulled the deed, we looked at the deed, because there were some issues of whether there was a restriction within the deed about, you know, what could go on the property. And there is a provision in the deed itself that talks about the religious artifacts. And the deed specifies that if Word of Faith was not going to use the religious artifacts and personal property that was left, then the Franciscans could come in and remove that. So rather than just say Word of Faith disposing of everything, it had religious significance to Duns Scotus, the Franciscans could come and take that back. But that's the only mention. The only other mention about a restriction was no casino, no gambling. So that at the time, and you know, again.
That's a good.
I would, but I'm just wondering, you know, if we did do something making it historical. Because
I'll
all
look
the
at-
artifacts, they made not a fire, what did I say, an auction of all the artifacts and put it out for bid,
Okay.
all the artifacts.
Word of Faith did, or the Franciscans?
Franciscans.
Okay.
And that's when the city said, hey, you know, this could be opened up for anything.
I have not
But
seen.
I don't know, would that make
Yeah,
a
and I-
difference if it was?
Probably not.
Okay.
You know, I mean, again, it depends, but I have not seen anything that we put a historic district on that. So,
I thought maybe that somewhere along the way,
you say, we did at least chase down the lead on the deed restrictions.
Okay.
I'll move to Rule 10. if-
Wait,
No,
Okay.
you,
Yeah.
did you have,
No, Tanya said she was going to move.
We got 3.2.
Everybody, all at once.
We're all anxious to have
Everybody.
Yeah, I'll remove my Rule
Mr. Chairman.
10.
We want this passed.
Mr. Chairman, support.
I don't know who made it, Mr.
Tanya did.
Okay,
So-
I move that we
Tanya did.
move on Rule 10 to adopt the resolution.
Well, okay, so the Rule 10 would be the first vote, and then
Yeah.
the second motion would be to approve the resolution.
Okay.
It's been moved by Ms. Morris, and supported by Mr. Brightwell, that we find an immediate need to act on this issue. Is there any other discussion? Are we prepared to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Opposed? It is carried. And now the motion to,
And now I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution to pursue civil litigation against Word of Faith, Jordan Development, and NDQ.
and put a budget in.
Oh, and allow for a budget of $50,000.
Okay.
Support that too.
It's been moved by Ms. Morris and supported by Mr. Brightwell that we adopt the resolution before us for civil action against the named parties, along with a $50,000 budget. Is there any other discussion?
And 50,000 would be coming out of our general fund contingency account. I apologize for not having an account. We do have funds left.
Okay? It's good to explain where it's coming from,
Yeah.
because otherwise we might have to collect it up around the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Good work, speedy work. Okay, now we have one other item before we get into the communications, and that is, we need to schedule a special committee of the whole meeting for Monday, March the 21st at 5:30.
Also move.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Perkassi, supported by Mr. Mambabaum, that we have a special, we schedule a special committee of the whole meeting for Monday, March the 21st at 5:30 PM. And the purpose of the meeting is to, should we talk, can we?
This is a Rule 10, right?
Yeah, this would be a Rule 10. Yeah, in essence, it's not really technically a special meeting because you are setting it. The special meeting is where either the.
No, I mean, I was, can we discuss the subject matter?
Oh, sure, sure.
Okay.
I don't think there's any.
All right, then we'll back up and we need another Rule 10.
Also
And you-
moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Fracassi, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum, that we find an immediate need to act on scheduling a special committee meeting for next Monday at 5:30. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And now, Mr. Fracassi has made a motion, Mr. Mandelbaum has supported the scheduling of a special committee of the whole meeting for
The
Monday,
21st at
March
5:30.
at 5:30 to discuss the different what do you call them? The planning consultants that were, pardon?
For Northland?
Yeah, for Northland, yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It was carried. And now we can go into our communications. The first person that has requested a recognition is Ms. Pamela Gerald. Ms. Gerald, you have 3 minutes.
We didn't get to the 4 minutes yet?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, still waiting.
Up to 3 minutes.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to say to the city that I am so proud of how you handled this, filing a quick injunction regarding this issue. It is a zoning issue. The residents said that they do not want drilling in a residential neighborhood. You saw how the residents have stuck by this administration regarding this no drilling. We have been out there protesting with Skip Davis and his coalition, saying to Word of Faith, no drilling. So we have shown a little solidarity. I would like to see that same solidarity with this administration, trying to get those raises and contracts settled with the employees. So if the residents can stand with you on an issue that we know is bad for the community, you should be able to stand with these residents supporting these employees to get these contracts settled. I would like to see all of these contracts settled with 3636, 329, and TPOAM before the mayor's State of the City address, which is next Monday. Can you do it? I think you need to get in whatever room you meet in, sequester yourself, and come up with a darn contract. Show the employees that you care for them, like the residents showed this administration that we care for you regarding this no drilling matter. And I want you to think about it, ponder about it, and come up with a darn contract. Monday the 21st, so that he can say in his State of the City address that this city has one thing to be proud of, in addition to this injunction to stop this drilling, that you have finally settled those contracts with those 3 unions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Mr. Gerard Mullen. You have up to 3 minutes.
Gerard Mullen, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037. Mr. Chairman, in the past I've asked this council 3 times to move your legal notices from the Southfield Eccentric to the Southfield Sun, the one newspaper that every Southfield resident gets a copy of for free. Whereas the Eccentric is a newspaper that only a few Southfield residents get, and it costs $1.50 per copy to boot. You folks here on council know that the Sun is the place to be. That is why 6 of the 8 council candidates in the last general election placed their ads, their political ads, in the Sun and not the Eccentric. Not one Southfield council candidate placed one single ad in the Southfield Eccentric. That's right, not one. I'd like to ask you folks a question. Why is the Southfield Sun your choice for your personal business, but not the people's business? Thank you.
Our third request for recognition is Linda Denard. Linda Denard here? Linda Denard? And there apparently is no Linda Denard. That completes our communications, request for communications.
Mr. President, may I comment?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank the residents for their support on the well. That solidarity is very important. Nothing would make me happier than to have our collective bargaining agreements resolved. But for the viewing public, I want to be very clear, it has to be a contract that we can live with economically. We have offered raises to every bargaining group, as authorized within the parameters that the administration has discussed with council. I personally, in the last, since the beginning of the year, we now are doing our best to get a city newsletter out every few weeks. We've got 3 go out. I'm doing a luncheon with a monthly with different employee departments as city administrator. Topics range from why we bought Northland to the art to where we're at in the collective bargaining process. But I want to be clear, we have offered raises. And the reality is it has to be something that works for the organization. You know, we have bargaining groups that cover the library and Parks and Rec. Even the raises that we have offered will further exasperate the deficit, the budgeted deficit situation in the library. And yes, the library beats budget, but every time we give a raise, that means they're going to be deficit spending a little bit more. Same thing with Parks and Rec. The budgeted deficit for libraries about $110,000. I'm confident that department will be budget. Parks and Rec, a deficit budgeted deficit of $463,000 for the current fiscal year. A raise will further exasperate that. Yet we've offered those. We have to look at not just the general fund, our Act 51 funds, our enterprise funds, the water department and such, but we also have to recognize that we still have groups that do not have fiscal sustainable models. And that's all part of this balance. We continue to work with Parks and Rec to get a structure that will help us live within our financial means. And I continue, to work with, Dave Ewick, our library director, and I applaud them. But I want to be clear, there's this misconception that we haven't offered raises. We have offered raises. And we'll continue in good faith to go through a collective bargaining process. I believe we're in negotiations Wednesday or Thursday with one of the groups. One of the groups just recently elected a new president last Thursday. I will be meeting with that new president before the week is over. But each week I'm trying to meet with 2 union presidents and their groups. This morning I had breakfast with 2 of the union president and one of the other union people at the fire department. And we'll continue to keep that dialogue going.
Don't you really want to say, Mr. Zorn, that it's not the raises, it's the legacy costs that will indebt this city way into the future?
For every dollar of active payroll, if we were truly to be fulfilling our legacy costs, those unfunded post-healthcare retirement, which when we presented the audit, the liability was $173 million. Since then, we've got a more recent report, it's now 185 million. In the last 2 weeks, I probably spent 6 hours focused on what we can do and how we can address that liability. For every $1 we pay an employee, keep in mind, we currently have a fringe benefit cost per dollar of active payroll just under, depending upon the bargaining group, from 44 cents to 48 cents for every dollar payroll. That would need to increase another 37 cents for every dollar of payroll. We should be spending and putting in place into that liability another $14.5 million a year is the number. And that's the heart of what we're trying to get the right balance to. I know it's painful. Our employees have been wonderful partners in this partnership. I recognize in the last 8 years that their earning power, that they've lost at minimum 15% to inflation. 8 years ago, they were paying nothing into their pensions. They're now paying 5 cents for every dollar of payroll. That wasn't happening before. They weren't paying anything into Aviva, a voluntary employee benefit account.
Right, for the,
Did I get that right?
for the medical.
For the medical.
Right,
Well, that's another 2 cents per group.
2%.
You know, so our employees have been at the table partnering with us. I recognize it's difficult. We'll continue to work our way through the model. And when I meet with the bargaining groups, the story with Northland, this is about an investment in our future. If we get that site right, and what we heard from the 5 planning consultants on that site, it's feasible between Northland and the site across the street, where this committee's made a large investment, and what we're doing with our proposed housing and neighborhood initiative, Northland can easily, I firmly believe, could be another $500 million in investment. It'll take us time to get there. That's another $6 million a year to our tax base. That's part of this strategy. Can we recoup some of what we lost, that 40%, when we had a tax base of $3.2 billion, and we're now at $2.4 billion, only went up 0.3%. And I'll say it, I've had a number of seniors who called me and said, I haven't had an increase in Social Security in 2 years. And that's, I'll get these calls, but we're working with our employees, we're active at the table, we're working to get these contracts resolved. I would love to have it done by the 21st. I think that's a real tall order, though.
When we had the CAFR report given to us, my jaw dropped. I knew that the legacy costs were a problem. I didn't realize how much we had to swallow until you see it on paper. The distance just keeps getting further and further apart, and we can't spend the money now. That's going to make it even worse as we go. I mean, we can only do what we can do, and the people have to trust us that we're protecting their retirement costs as best as we can, because there are so many cities that have gone bankrupt, and the people have given up all of their benefits. So we're doing the best we can, but it's got to be a partnership in order to get there. So
I have shared with council that I had conversation with John Shea, the governor's director of strategic planning. At that point, this was pre-Flint. The priorities were the Detroit school system, getting legislation through, energy, and the OPEB liabilities. Interesting in a conversation and a lecture presentation I heard by the Michigan Municipal League. According to the Michigan Municipal League, the revenue sharing heist from Lansing the last 10 years is equivalent to $7.2 billion. It actually happens to be the same number statewide as the OPEB liability. And that tells me 2 things. Lansing knows what that liability is statewide. And to this council and previous councils, note that the GASB, the Government Accounting Standard Board rules, did not require that to show up in your balance sheet. It said June 30th of 2018 that number shows up in our balance sheet. That's why it's important that we begin daylighting this, because between June 30th of 18 and June 30th, 19 and 20, if we don't make progress in resolving it, that is a trigger for an EM. Now, what's funny, and the next city new employee newsletter is gonna have an article reprinted with the permission of the Michigan Municipal League called the Revenue Sharing Heist. There were some interesting things in there. Allen Park, a community that ended up in revenue, in receiver, the revenue heist, or what they lost in changes to Lansing changing the rules, had they got that money, they wouldn't have ended up in an EM. And the same thing can be said for a lot of other cities. For us, the revenue sharing heist is $23 million in a 10-year period. So from 2008 to present, to have lost 40% of our tax base, we are so fortunate the May 2010 millage that our residents passed helped offset some of that in the general fund.
Sure.
We did also take the library and Parks and Rec back up to their Hadley cap, but they're still struggling simply because they've lost that base. We'll continue to work to find a solution, have an active dialogue, because I can't accomplish anything as city administrator without my employees, and I know that every day, so.
Okay. Anything else before we go into closed session?
Yeah, I have one quick thing.
Yes.
I'd like to pass around, we're kicking off today the fundraising to provide reimburse the loan for the Northland Art. We have a free, this is with the Public Art Commission, a Free the Bear campaign. And we're looking for 600,000, I'm sorry. We're planning to raise $600,000. We're halfway there with a $300,000 grant from the John Miller Legacy Fund. And I wanted you to see this brochure because we'll be doing a community outreach shortly, as well as corporate outreach to Free the Bear, and our goal is to raise $600,000 to pay back the loan and to have $100,000 to move and install the bear, but also other pieces of Northland art. And we are tentatively looking at installing it in the library on May 19th. That's the goal.
Okay. Okay. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Support.
It is moved by Mr. Cruz, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum, that we go into closed session. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brightwell? Mr. Fracassi? Ms. Morris? Yes. Mr. Mandelbaum? Yes. Seymour? Yes. Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
7 days to go to closed session.
Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute break.